I can direct in a second.
We might suspend the rules.
Yeah, let me go
Move
first.
them up.
I understand.
But we gotta jockey it back and forth.
I guess. They're gonna make some, Bill's gonna make some.
Sharon.
I should call James. Is she, a creamer? So Tim, real quick,
You admit it.
I read that was great. I think that they
Yeah, raise it.
and then,
Probably right.
like that. That we would, yeah, right. That we would just add, like I said, data on that, just so we can see like what's happening, because before we can regulate like a special assessment process, we want to make sure, well, we want to do that process of special assessment, and we want to make sure that the way that we're finding is done by implementing what you're saying. It's something about right. So instead of a bunch of fines, everything, because I think it's important to remediate whatever problem.
You know, that idea of like caseworker or someone's putting in a private worker.
Now, would that be a different position, or is that just somebody who's...
I can say, but it's not really geared towards this part. It's to develop,
What's that?
Which one goes first?
Which one goes first? Let me check my agenda.
we're ready to...
Domestic violence, so what's up?
Who's coming for domestic violence?
People from the bottom.
This
It's a white
different
color.
So, you know that. Perfect. Okay, perfect. Color. Yeah. Right.
Can you get ready? I'm ready. I'm ready.
I was thinking.
I know. Did you see the father here yet?
I don't see him.
Huh? No, he's on.
Father Bowman? No? All right. We good to go? Okay. Go to where Jenkins? Let's go.
He is? Oh.
What's that?
Yeah, he is trying to check.
Good evening. The Monday, October 8th Common Council meeting is now in session. Our invocation is Father Bauman here. Do not see him. I will go to my bullpen, the Reverend Oliver Davis Jr. Would you please do our invocation?
Dear Lord, we thank you so much for being here tonight. We ask you to grant wisdom as we make plans for the city of South Bend. Continue to bless the council, bless our mayor, bless all those who have gathered here tonight in our entire city. We thank you for everything you've done for us. Save us when you come. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. If you would, please turn your cell phones to silent. Go ahead. Yeah, sure. Ms. Fowler, roll call, please.
Councilmember Preston? Here. Councilmember McBride? Present. Councilmember Broden? Here. Councilmember Tester?
Here.
Vice President Davis?
Present.
Councilmember Gordon?
Here.
Councilmember Furley?
Here.
Councilmember White?
Present.
President Scott?
Present.
9 present.
Thank you. Subcommittee on Minutes, please.
To the Common Council of the City of South Bend, the subcommittee has inspected the minutes of the September 24, 2018 meeting of the council and found them to be correct. Therefore, we recommend the same be approved.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Before we go to special business, I'd like to recognize Troop 173 from South Bend. Would you gentlemen all please stand up? They are here to see... Thanks, gents. You are at the Super Bowl of council meetings. This is where we do our budget and democracy at hand. With that, Ms. Fowler, would you please read 1918?
1918, a resolution by the South Bend Common Council recognizing October 2018 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in the city of South Bend, Indiana.
Thank you. Is there a presenter or presenters?
Good evening.
Good evening.
It's truly an honor to be here tonight, and I'm here joined with two of our colleagues, Councilwoman Joe Broden and Councilwoman Sharon McBride. And I'd like to ask those from the domestic violence. Come forward on the side, and then we will make our presentation. Okay. October, best month of the year. Moving forward. Bill number 1918, resolution number 4751, a resolution by the South Bend Common Council recognizing October 2018 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in the city of South Bend, Indiana.
Whereas Domestic Violence Awareness Month evolved from the Day of Unity held in October 1981 and was conceived by the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, the Day of Unity soon evolved into a week, and in October of 1987, the first National Domestic Violence Awareness Month was observed. In 1989, Congress passed Public Law 101-112, officially designating October of that year as National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And whereas domestic violence is a serious, widespread crime that affects over 10 million Americans of all races, ages, gender, and income levels, and whereas more than 1 in 3 women, 37%, and 1 in 3 men, 34%, more than 1 in 3 men, 34%, in the United States report having experienced domestic violence, stalking, sexual assault, or physical assault by an intimate partner during their lifetimes. And
whereas children witness an estimated 33% of intimate partner physical assaults, and those that grow up in violent homes are often abused and neglected at a rate higher than the national average. Whereas intimate partner violence accounts for 15% of all violent crimes, at least 19% of reported domestic violence involves the use of a weapon, and the presence of a gun in a domestic violence situation increases the risk of homicide by 500%. And whereas domestic violence costs the nation billions of dollars annually in medical expenses, law enforcement, and court costs, shelters, foster care, sick leave, absenteeism, and non-productivity. And whereas numerous community partners and allied agencies within the city of South Bend, Indiana are dedicated to a coordinated effort to put a stop to this cycle of violence.
Now therefore be proclaimed by the Common Council as follows. Section 1, that on this 8th day of October 2018, the South Bend Common Council recognizes the month of October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in the city of South Bend, Indiana. Section 2, the South Bend Common Council urges all its residents to work together to take a stand to eliminate domestic violence from our community by learning more about prevention and by showing support for the numerous organizations and individuals who provide critical advocacy, service, and assistance to victims. Section 3. This resolution shall be enacted upon the passage of the South Bend Common Council and signed by the Mayor of South Bend, Indiana. And I really am glad that we are doing this early in my life. I've had to deal with this matter from family members, from my classmates. One of the young ladies in my high school, I'll never forget, was going through a divorce, and her husband killed her. Her little baby found her. And from that standpoint, when you see this in your own family and church, it's something that touches your heart, and it makes you realize that we need to do more individually and as a community. And so today we also have Ms. Hyman from the Y, who's going to also talk to us.
Hi, I want to thank you for acknowledging that October is Domestic Violence Awareness. Pardon?
For the record, we need your name and address.
I'm Susan Tybine. I'm the president and CEO of the YWCA, and we're located at 1221 Fellows Street in South Bend.
Thank you.
Is that only one?
Yep. You're
okay.
good.
Oh, okay. I just want to say and repeat that 1 in 3 women are the victims of domestic violence within their lifetime, and that we at the YWCA have served 3,200 women within the past year. I think that 1 in 3 women, the statistics are really reaching epidemic proportions, and so we offer a lot of educational programs. We offer a lot of work in prevention. So if you have a workplace or if you know of a school system that could use a presentation, we're doing everything that we can to try to educate and prevent further victims of domestic violence. And also, I thank you for increasing awareness, because there's still a stigma. A lot of women are very embarrassed and ashamed to come forward, and with the statistics being so high, I think that women need the support of the entire community. And so I thank you for taking a step to really support battered women and victims of domestic violence.
Thank you. Vice President Davis, I think you guys were remiss to give your name and address for the record.
Okay. Oliver Davis, 1801 Nash Street, 6th District.
Thank you.
Sarah McBride, 415 East Broadway Street, 3rd District.
Joe Broden, 4th District, 201 West North Shore, South Bend, Indiana.
Thank you. With that, I'll bring it back to council for comments at this point. Ms. Preston?
Such an important issue. I want to thank you, Oliver Davis, and other council members for bringing this to the community. It's certainly something, especially in light of the recent violence we've been seeing, and many of those stories that we hear that come out of these shootings have to do with domestic issues. And so knowing that, recognizing that, this is really important to, again, take the opportunity during this month to really begin to educate our whole community. And most particularly, I have an interest in those young people, maybe getting into the high schools and talking about dating violence and, what it means to around issues of relationships. So again, thank you for that, and I look forward to doing more work with you as well on this issue.
Mr. Teska?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Tibbin, for what you do and all that the YWCA does to help women here in Northern Indiana. I particularly have a heart for this. I grew up in a family that had a heart for this issue, and my mom actually sat on the board of a couple of women's shelters, and so very appreciative of the work that you're doing. I think the key here is awareness, obviously, and so thank you, council members, that initiated this resolution. As with a lot of other issues in our modern times, sex trafficking, just knowing the signs and signals, right, knowing the things to look for helps us as a community to be better able to address these issues. So thank you again, and thank you.
Mr. Wardy?
Thank you for everything you do. Happy to be a small part of raising awareness to such an important issue.
Yeah, thank you for the work you do.
I would like to thank Councilmember Oliver Davis and the 2 co-sponsors, Councilwoman Sharon McBride and Councilwoman Joe Broden, for bringing this issue and this resolution before the council, and also the work that is being done and has been done at the YWCA. We really appreciate all your efforts, education, awareness, and really having the opportunity and the resources to address this critical issue. I've had the pleasure of working with 2 groups of young ladies at their school corporation,
And we've spent a lot of time talking about dating, violence, and understanding the signs and having the strength to tell someone, but most importantly, to walk away and not go back into those abusive relationships. So the work that you are doing and will continue to do is very critical. And again, thank the sponsors for bringing this before the council.
Yes, and thank you, sponsors. Thank you for all the work that you guys have done. Unfortunately, I think, I'm reflecting back on my life, and all too often we see it directly involved with relatives and that within our lives, which is not good, or someone, more colleagues, people that we know, people that I've helped. It's not good. It's a statistic we want to see less of. And anything that we can do to raise awareness. Just had an incident in the 1st District. It's centered around domestic violence. We got to do more. And we got to help those people find the services and have the courage to come forward. So I thank you. Council members, any other comments before we turn it over to the public?
Not at this time. We'll just turn it to the public.
Okay, thank you. Anyone from the public wishing to speak in favor of 1918, please come to the podium. Thank you. Please state your name and address.
Jesse Davis, P.O. Box 10205, South Bend, Indiana. I just want to say I do appreciate this resolution, but I wanted to kind of expand on it a little bit. We always seem to focus on the YWCA, the women who are abused. There's a lot of men out there that are abused. And it's not just physical abuse. We have to remember, we look a lot at the sexual abuse and physical abuse. There's a lot of mental abuse, too. And I would say if they looked at the numbers really hard and people would come out and talk about it, you would probably be shocked at the amount of men who refuse to come forward, who are abused just because they feel like, hey, if I come forward, I'm going to look like a coward. This woman did this to me. So we need to remember we've got a lot of services for women. Maybe at some point in time look towards some services and some more awareness towards the men's side of this, because it does take a toll on families, and I've seen it firsthand, so I know what it can do to a family.
Thank you, sir. Next, name and address. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? No? Ma'am, if you have a comment, go ahead.
I do want to just say that we do provide services for men, and that we have had men come to our shelter, but the percentage that are served is much lower than that of women, and it could be that, men would be very embarrassed to admit that they're victims of domestic violence.
And you're still collecting cell phones, right?
Yes.
Yep. All right.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Seeing none. Anyone who wish to speak against? Seeing none, turn it back to council.
Motion to adopt by acclamation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It's approved. Get in there, Vice President.
Can you see her in
But,
What she wants, though.
I mean, every one of us.
I have no problems with it.
Ms. Fowler, would you please read 2118?
2118, a resolution by the South Bend Common Council recognizing October 2018 as National Breast Cancer Awareness Month in the city of South Bend, Indiana.
Thank you. Are there presenters?
Yes, we do.
Your name and address, sir.
Oliver Davis, 1801 Nash Street, South Bend, Indiana, representing the 6th District. The special award bow tie that has both pink and purple in it to try to meet both of these resolutions. The domestic violence was purple, and we have pink, and I'd like for all those who are in the pink and want to come forth, please come forth and represent us in our breast cancer awareness month. Yes.
Karen White, at-large councilperson, 1912 Melville White.
Thank you.
Regina Williams Preston, 838 North Elmer Street.
Thank you.
I'll begin. Resolution number 4750-18. A resolution by the South Bend Common Council recognizing October 2018 as National Breast Cancer Awareness Month in the city of South Bend, Indiana.
Whereas the South Bend Common Council recognizes the courage of those who have fought, are fighting, or will fight breast cancer in their lifetime. It also honors those who have lost their lives to the disease. And whereas thousands of women and men in our country take on the fight against breast cancer each year, and whereas screening and early detection can make a tremendous difference in overcoming breast cancer. And
Whereas in the city of South Bend, there are countless advocates, medical professionals, researchers, and caregivers who dedicate their lives to fighting for a world without breast cancer. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Common Council as follows. The South Bend Common Council acknowledges the importance of raising awareness of breast cancer in our community as we work to support survivors, those currently battling breast cancer, and those who might detect it in its early stages. And, Section 1, that on this 8th day of October 2018, the South Bend Common Council recognizes October 2018 as National Breast Cancer Awareness Month in the city of South Bend, Indiana.
Section 2, the South Bend Common Council recommits itself to raising breast cancer awareness in our community and the impact it has on our loved ones, friends, colleagues, and community members. Section number 3, this resolution shall be enacted upon the passage of the South Bend Common Council and signed by the Mayor of South Bend, Indiana. At this time, we have representatives from Memorial, Beacon Memorial, and we also have representatives from St. Joe in terms of the a part of Brian Kelly's program there that he has. We will start with St. Joe.
Thank you. Name and address, please.
Camilla Shaw, 11635 Ross Thorn Lane, Mishawaka, Indiana. I just want to say thank you for bringing awareness to Breast Cancer Month in October. We know 1 in 8 women is affected by breast cancer. 1 in 1,000 men can be affected by breast cancer. So this is important for everyone in our community to become aware, as we know early detection saves lives.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Sherry Demitz, and I work as supervisor at Memorial Breast Care Center. And I just want to thank the council and the people here at the South Bend Common Council, and thank you very much for dedicating this day as Breast Cancer Awareness Day. We do an important job, and we just want to be helpful for our patients and for the community. And I'd like to introduce Monica. She is a warrior and a survivor.
Monica Santa, 3823 Dudley Drive, Mishawaka. I am a survivor of 14 years. I also do mammograms. So I am Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I am what a mammogram looks like, a survivor.
Right.
No family history. I encourage every woman in here to have their mammogram. If you have no financial, we have the ways to get it for you. Okay, you must be advocate for your health. Every age in here, I'm telling you, you got to do it.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you, please.
I'd like to thank them. Our next speaker I'd like to introduce is my wife. She'll come forth and share her story.
Thank you. Name and address, please.
Linda Davis, 1801 Nash Street, South Bend. In 2001, May of 2001, I was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer. There was no cancer actually of any kind in my family, so I was actually the first person in my family to have breast cancer. And the thing that doctors didn't understand was how I could get it at 36. In the early 2000s, they did not do mammograms for women until they were 40. And now they've changed that, and it's because of women like me who got it beforehand, because my doctor was saying it's almost time for you to have the mammogram. So it's very important to get those mammograms, but it's also very important to watch your stress levels. I was not the general reason for eating certain foods, using certain chemicals, smoking, drinking. Mine was strictly on stress, and I had stage 2. So it is something that can affect anyone at any time, at any age. But this is year number 17 for me, and I'm blessed and honored to be able to be the face of how you can get over breast cancer. Thank you so much for your attention to it and for your honor of it, and we all appreciate you.
Thank you. This time we'll turn back to council. Gavin, we'll start with you. Any comments?
No, just thank you for the very important work you do in the community.
Yeah, thanks. It's hard, again, it's good to be part of anything that raises awareness to something like this. It's hard to believe that it's such an important and common message that somebody wouldn't, know it and do what they can to prevent it these days. I mean, but anyway, whatever helps. Pleasure to be part of.
Jake?
Yeah, I would just thank you thank you, Linda, for sharing your story. Thank you to the women who spoke, who work on a day in and day out basis to combat this. As Gavin said, such an important job that you guys do with love and care. I know it's tasking on yourselves emotionally, and the care that you provide for your patients is fantastic. So thank you.
Thank you. Keep telling your story, right? Really appreciate it. That's how we beat this. I have a sister-in-law and a best friend. My sister-in-law is, I think, about 7 years out, so and doing well. My best friend, his situation is over and done with, served on national boards, etc. So yeah, this hits everybody, right? Whether directly or as a family member or someone of concern. And I'd actually like to use this opportunity just to thank you as healthcare providers, support service providers, because that's all within your realm of what you do day to day on behalf of our community. And but I'd also like to hold up the Secret Sister Society, whom I know is very important in partnership with you all. And also how I first became aware of this issue at a very early age, despite being the last of 7 sisters, the last in age, WNDU and their buddy check. I mean, I think about way back when they established their program. And I know I'm probably missing other key groups and individuals who are raising dollars to get over some of the costs of care, the cost of treatment, and even the screenings. So I apologize in doing that, but you all do great work. We are all indebted to you, and again, thank you very much.
Thank you all for your service and the services that you provide to the community. And to the council, thank you for bringing such an awareness. I know it does not do justice to just honor you for one day, but this small token publicly is much well-deserved and appreciated. So thank you again, and hopefully that we can make a small impact for people to start getting checked and to minimize the effects of it. So thank you.
Yes, thank you all. Thank you, ladies. The support and the services are incredible. This is near and dear to my heart. someone near and dear to me, will go through their 1-year mark Friday. So thank you all. At this point, Vice President Davis, anything else?
We're now just ready for the public at this time.
Okay. Anyone from the public wishing to speak in favor, please come to the podium. Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak against 2118? Got to get past all those ladies. Seeing none, we'll turn it back to council.
Motion to adopt by acclamation.
Second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Thank you. It's adopted.
Put up your such strong voice. That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for your work. Thank you. Appreciate it. Lots of things. Beautiful. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Mary Dell. Tim, we'll go ahead and do some for the first 2 ordinances. I'll announce this when we get we'll hear these 2, the first 2. We'll suspend the rules to vote the annexation. Yeah, I didn't. So the resolution.
Do the resolutions first.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah. They don't want to see the budget?
Tim, you're right. We'll suspend it just for the resolution.
Okay. Thank you, Vice President Davis. Karen White. Karen, thank you.
Maybe now.
At this time, there are no reports from city offices. Gavin Furlick, do you have something to say?
Sure. We'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules to hear resolutions before ordinances.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Thank you. We will move to resolutions, which is section 9 in your agenda if you're following along. At this time, Ms. Fowler, would you please give reading to 1854?
1854, a resolution confirming the adoption of a declaratory resolution designating certain areas within the city of South Bend, Indiana, commonly known as Lot 5, US 31, Industrial Park Phase 2, as an economic revitalization area for purposes of a 9-year real personal property tax abatement for National Distribution Centers, LLC.
Thank you. Is there a presenter? No committee reports. Confirming? Okay. That's cool. Thank you. Would you please state your name and address for the record?
Good evening, Council. Austin Gamage, Business Development Manager for Community Investment Department on the 14th floor of this building. I'm here for the presentation of the confirming resolution for National Distribution Centers, LLC, for their 9-year tax abatement. This petition was presented before Council a few weeks ago, so I'll be brief on the project summary. The construction consists of 232,000 approximately warehouse and logistics distribution building. There'll be a $14 million investment in the building construction and land purchase. The estimated taxes being paid during the 9-year abatement will be $1,138,755. The estimated taxes being abated during the 9-year period would be $1,675,590. Also, this investment will also help to retain over 108 jobs here in our community. We do have representation for NFI. Here present with us, Mr. Mark Neal.
Mr. Neal, would you come up and give a very quick and brief explanation?
Good evening, Council. I know you have a busy agenda tonight, so thank you. I am here, Mark Neal, with offices at 112 West Jefferson Boulevard, Suite 300, the Bradley Company here in South Bend, representing the company NFI Industries. As noted in our last meeting, they are excited about their ability to expand their operation here in our community. They look forward to getting underway as quickly as they can. This abatement is critical to that effort. They'll also be going to the Board of Zoning Appeals later this week with a couple of requests, which would be very standard for this type of development there at Dillon Drive, and look forward to answering any questions you would have on their commitment and the investment in our community.
Are there any questions for the presenter or the petitioner? Seeing none, thank you. We'll open up to the public. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the 1854 confirming, please come to the podium. Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak against 1854, please come to the podium. Seeing none, back to the council.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Ms. Fowler?
Councilmember Preston? Aye. Councilmember McBride?
Aye.
Councilmember Rhodes? Aye. Councilmember Teska?
Aye.
Vice President Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Gordon?
Aye.
Councilmember Curtis?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
President Scott?
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. 1857, please.
1857, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, adopting a written physical plan and establishing a policy for provisions of services to an annexation area in Portage Township, Glad Annexation Area.
Sir, committee report.
Yes, the Zoning and Annexation Committee met this afternoon, and we bring this resolution to you with no recommendation at this time. There was talk to have some types of agreement, and do I turn that over to our attorney now, or so you can have some better understanding of what's proceeded between now and then, or who do I turn that over to?
I'll make a motion to accept the substitute.
Well, these are ordinance. There's no substitute for the resolution.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
We're not going to
So
That's later.
That's the ordinance.
We're fine now.
So we're fine right now, and then we will explain what we have done when it comes down to that part.
Exactly.
I'm at peace, sir.
Thank you. Are you ready, Mr. DeVito?
Bob, are we sure? Yes. All right, okay.
Good evening. Michael DeVito, planner with Department of Community Investment offices on the 14th floor of this building. So this physical plan is for a 61.3 acre annexation that's been requested by the property owner of one parcel on Renewable Road, north of Prairie Avenue near the ethanol plant. As you'll hear later on here, agriculture, light industrial uses are planned for the site. So no capital improvements are currently planned by the city as part of this annexation. Water and sewer is available along Renewable Road. The lift station along Talbot Street could require upgrades depending on the future use of this site. The question came up in committee, this would be the same lift station that was in the Brookhaven agreement. No new streets will be added to the city as part of this annexation. Annexation area will be added to the Common Council 6 district and served by Police Beat 25, Fire Station 5, Emergency Medics 4 or 5, and Code Enforcement Area 6. These and other non-capital services will be in place within 1 year of the effective date of annexation, with response times comparable to other areas of the city. I then ask for the council's adoption of the physical plan, but we happy to take any questions you might have.
Any questions?
Yes, follow up please on the Pokagon agreement for the lift station and the timing of that and the price tag.
I think, from my understanding from Public Works, it was tied into when the hotel development happened at the casino site.
Okay. And we don't have a price tag for that?
I do not.
Proposed?
No.
Any other questions?
I defer my question to the time we have on the other situation.
For the annexation?
Great.
Okay, with that, we'll open up to the public. Anyone from the public wishing to speak in favor of 1857, please come to the podium. Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak against 1857, please come to the podium. Again, seeing none.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Ms. Fowler?
Councilmember McBride.
Aye.
Councilmember Broden.
Aye.
Councilmember Teschka.
Aye.
Vice President Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Gordon.
Aye.
Councilmember Furman.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Councilmember Preston.
Aye.
And President Scott.
Aye.
9 ayes on the
Thank-
plan.
Thank you. Would you please read 1858?
1858, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, adopting a written physical plan and establishing a policy for the provision of services to an annexation area in Portage Township, Sears annexation area.
Thank you. Is there a presenter?
Again, the zoning and
Oh, I'm
executive
sorry.
committee met this afternoon, and we bring Bill 1858 with no recommendation, given the changes that you will be hearing coming up regarding the type of annexation.
My apologies, committee chair.
No problem.
Mr. DeVito.
Again, Michael DeVito, planner with Department of Community Investment, offices on the 14th floor of this building. So this fiscal plan is for a 254.6 acre annexation that's been requested by the property owner of 3 parcels at the west end of Calvert Street, west of Renewable Road, again near the ethanol plant. Again, you will hear that agriculture, light industrial uses are planned for this site. So no capital improvements are currently planned by the city as part of this annexation. Water is available along Calvert Street and along Renewable Road, with sewer available along Calvert Street. The only road being added to the city as part of this annexation is the US 2031 bypass, which will continue to be maintained by INDOT. Again, the annexation area will be added to the 6th district for the Common Council and served by Police Beat 25, Fire Station 5, Emergency Medics 4 or 5, and Code Enforcement Area 6. Again, ask for your approval, but would be happy to take any questions about that.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. DeVito? Ms. Broden.
So a lift station would be considered a capital improvement, correct?
Yes, if that became necessary. Yeah.
Okay. But we've contemplated earlier in an earlier agreement with the Pokagons, and the potential full development of the site would most likely require that lift station improvement.
Likely, yeah. It'll
Okay.
depend on the nature of the improvement. For the agricultural use, there wouldn't be any improvements necessary.
And as much as we're looking in the future, right, and this doesn't have a current use identified, and it's just coming in as a zoning, I guess my expectation, and it may be wrong, but I think it would be helpful to at least nod to that as an expense in this annexation report, as a potential expense in this annexation report.
There's a potential expense there. I think the idea that any development would be significant enough that it would sort of pay for the value of that lift station improvements.
Okay. Any other questions?
I defer mine to the comments that we are going to discuss later.
Okay. Thank you, Vice President. This time we'll open up to the public. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of 1858, please come to the podium. Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak against 1858, please come to the podium. Back to council.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Ms. Fowler.
Councilmember Broden.
Aye.
Councilmember Teschka.
Aye.
Vice President Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Gordon.
Aye.
Councilmember Furman.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Councilmember Preston.
Aye.
Councilmember McBride.
Aye.
President Scott.
Aye.
9 ayes.
The 6th district has just grown.
Voting coyotes. More votes. Send the coyotes.
We're going to take care of them, too.
Entertain a motion to rise to the committee of the whole.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. You don't want to take your name?
The Committee of the Whole is now in session. This is the portion of the council meeting where the full council meets as a committee. During each ordinance, members of the public will have an opportunity to speak either in favor or in opposition. Your comments will be limited to 5 minutes per bill. With that, would the city clerk please read 3418?
3418, public hearing on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, annexing and bringing within the city limits of South Bend, Indiana, and amending the zoning ordinance for property located in Portage Township, contiguous therewith, councilmanic district number 6, for a 31.75 acre tract of land on the west side of New Energy Drive, approximately 250 feet north of the State Road 23, South Bend, Indiana.
Can I entertain a motion to, yes, accept the second sub?
Second substitute.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Is there a committee report?
Yes, the zoning annexation came and met this afternoon, and after a long discussion, we came up with no recommendation. At this time, we would like to have clarification of what the, our second report will be, so you can share that.
Good evening, Angela Smith from the Area Planning Commission's office located on the 11th floor of this building. Before you is an amended ordinance. First of all, there was a typographical error. It is 61.75 acres, not 31.75. But the major change here is after the committee discussion, the petitioners are requesting a zone change to LI Light Industrial as opposed to the GI General Industrial District. The Light Industrial District limits the uses to ones that have clean, quiet, free of hazardous or objectionable elements such as noise, odor, dust, smoke, or glare, which they felt would be a good compromise to help address any concerns of the adjacent neighbors that came to the committee meeting this afternoon. So this particular property, you'll hear the other one here shortly, is on the east here. It is 61.75 acres. To the north, you have the GI General Industrial District in the city of South Bend, and to the east is LI. To the south was a property rezoned not that long ago to CB Community Business. And then the other property here to the west is later a petition this evening seeking the annexation and rezoning also. This property, along with the other ones, which you can't quite see in this one, will be more evident in the next presentation, is kind of a little bit of an island that's bound by the bypass on one side, existing industrial development to the east, and a railroad spur to the north that kind of isolates this from the surrounding agricultural area. Actually, this map kind of gives you that illustration there. You can see how this is the last kind of general area in this area to the southeast of the railroad tracks. So that's the next one. The comprehensive plan for this area calls for heavy industrial use, but the petitioner is seeking the light industrial to make sure they mitigate the effect on the surrounding properties. This comes to you from the Area Plan Commission with a favorable recommendation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions at this time?
Yes. Could you clarify some types of businesses that will not be allowed, given the fact that we are changing it to light industrial versus keeping it at the first requested GI?
Sure. So it will eliminate anything that would have a large amount of smoke, debris, anything with a lot of outdoor storage, auto wrecking, like service that you see for a tow facility, those kind of things that you only see as special exceptions in the GI General Industrial District. It's really intended for things that will happen inside and within a building with very limited, if any, outdoor storage. So mostly assembly, offices, warehousing.
If one of those type of businesses were to come and request that area, then they would have to come and ask for a zoning change?
They would either have to ask for a special exception if it was something that was allowed under the special exception section, which would come back to council, or a zoning change, both which would be public hearings.
Thank you. And thank you for coming out tonight on the vacation.
To the reference to heavy zoning in the plan, what does that date back to? And is that, what plan does that connect to?
That comes out of City Plan, which was a 2010 adoption, and I think that was in response to the already industrial nature of this area, which is why when the petitioners came and spoke to us, that was the direction we gave them. They were not interested in a specific user, but at the time we thought that was the best way to go, and then after the discussion and the public feedback, we've agreed to go to the light industrial.
So even though it was out of the city, now that it's in the city, we reference the city plan?
Yes, because we're looking at what the comprehensive plan calls for within the city of South Bend, because that's the ordinance.
Comprehensive. Right. Okay, I'm on it. Okay, thanks. Appreciate it.
And with that, we'll turn to the petitioner. Is there a need for a petitioner?
Yes.
Is it in this
situation?
Is it? Okay,
Yeah.
yes. Is it necessary or is it just necessary, right? Okay. Please state your name and address.
Good evening. I'm Pat Primer. I'm the attorney for Martin Blatt Farms, 4100 Edison Lakes Parkway, Mishawaka. And with me is Brett Burkus. He's the grandson of Martin Blatt, and he's in charge of operations of the farm. First of all, I'd like to say that on behalf of the firm that they are in agreement and asked to amend the petition to make it for light industrial uses. And the intentions right now, there is no specific plan, there's no specific buyer or any thoughts of exactly what the property might be. The plan is to continue farming as they have since the 1940s, but they want to be open to opportunities, recognizing that that is an area, that 62 acres is an area that opens itself up to development. And so if an opportunity arises, they want to be open to be able to consider that opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions from council for petitioner? Seeing none?
Oh, you can say anything?
No, he doesn't. He doesn't need to. He doesn't want to.
Okay, cool. I'm a piece. All right.
With that, we'll turn to the public portion. Anyone from the public wishing to speak in favor?
Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Tim Corcoran, Director of Planning for the City of South Bend, 14th floor of this building. Thank you for this. I just wanted to speak a little bit about the property and how the city was approached by Blatt Farms to voluntary annex into the city. This would be part of what would be a continuous 350 acres of greenfield possibilities with access to heavy rail, access to the US 31 bypass, and it represents a development potential that doesn't exist in other places in the city. For instance, Ignition Park has about 30 acres of remaining land available. Portage Prairie, which is another light industrial area of the city, has parcels that are between 10 and 30 acres. So the opportunity here is actually quite unique in that we have up to 350 acres of property, which is perfectly located for this type of use, as Angela mentioned, with the general industrial and light industrial areas surrounding the site. It's basically ready for development in terms of the infrastructure that's there. Some of the concerns that were brought up earlier this afternoon involved drainage, and one of the things that as new development happens, all their drainage needs to be taken care of on site. This is a requirement for all new development. So when a use will choose to go there at whatever time, that issue must be addressed at that time to the satisfaction of our engineering department. So with that, I'd like you, or ask you to vote favorably for this annexation and rezoning. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else in favor? Seeing none, anyone would like to speak in opposition? Seeing no one?
I don't know how to respond.
Seeing no one, the public portion is closed. I believe Mr. Davis had a comment?
I do have a comment. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone involved in this afternoon for the discussion that we had. We had 3 different farming families that came before us to share their concerns. They've been out here in this area for a long while, and we all had a desire to have it annexed, but the issue of at what level do we have it in terms of zoning, and they have it now at a level that I think helps to promote them and their needs, and at the same time respect the needs of the concerns of the neighbors, plus the whole west side of our city, because as development does come out to that way, we will still have input and not lose our ability to have some concerns, discussions, vote up and down, those kind of matters. And when we are growing our city, I think we don't need to lose our voice in that kind of opportunity and still be able to, promote growth and have some local controls. I think it's very important. So I thank you all, the members. We have one of our citizens members, Ms. Yokin, who came back this evening, and also the council. And I thank you We appreciate that for understanding. And when we work together like that, you see the opposition just went ahead and stayed home and had dinner at the house. And so those kind of things, when we can come together, it cuts down on those kind of frictions within neighborhoods and within the city.
The former opposition.
Thank you, former. I even like that even better. Now we're all a family. I appreciate it.
Would you like to make a motion as well?
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we approve.
Send it to the full council.
Send it to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
Substitute version.
Second.
Second substitute. How many substitutes? It takes to get through. Thank
All
you.
those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? The motion carries.
I appreciate it.
City Clerk, would you please read 3518?
3518, public hearing on an ordinance of the common council of the city of South Bend, Indiana, annexing and bringing within the city limits of South Bend, Indiana, and amending the zoning ordinance for property located in Portage Township, contiguous therewith, councilmanic district number 6, a 229-acre tract of land north of the St. Joseph Valley Parkway right-of-way, approximately 1,150 feet from the intersection of State Road 23 and the St. Joseph County Valley Parkway, South Bend, Indiana.
Make a motion here, the substitute version of 3518.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Is there a committee report, please?
Yes, prior to us having those substitutes, we had this discussion in the zoning and annexation committee this afternoon, and at that time, we did not have the substitute, so we came with no recommendation. But we now look forward to having this presentation tonight. Thank you.
Is there a presenter, please?
Good evening, Angela Smith from the Area Plan Commission with offices located on the 11th floor of your building. This is adjacent to the piece of property we were just discussing for Glad Farms. The Series Farms is, however, 229 acres, as you see here on the map, and as the amended ordinance was submitted, they will be seeking the LI Light Industrial District along with the annexation this evening. It's surrounded in the same general area as the previous one with general industrial, light industrial in the general vicinity. Agricultural is across the bypass, and some C commercial there kind of at the corner of the 23 and bypass ramp. Like the last petition, this comes to you from the Area Plan Commission with a favorable recommendation. It is consistent with the comprehensive plan and will allow for development within the city of South Bend of industrial growth.
Thank you.
Happy to answer your questions.
And is the petitioner present?
Yes. Here he is.
Hello, I'm Steve Cardinal, and I'm with Series Farms as the CCO. And our office is at 1251 North Eddy Street, South Bend. And I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to take a look at this resolution. I think that light industrial would be appropriate for this area. So,
thank you. Any questions for presenter or petitioner at this time?
In any way that will not affect your whole goals, right?
no, it'll stay in agriculture for now, and we just see what comes in the future.
I appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. With that, we'll turn to the public portion. Anyone like to speak in favor?
Hello, Tim Corcoran, Director of Planning, City of South Bend, 14th floor of this building. Thank you again. I'd like to reiterate some of the comments I made earlier, but I think the map that's in front of us at the moment actually displays the logic of the rezoning more than the previous ones, where it really is an extension of an industrial area of our city, and it's, again, very well suited for that use, and look forward to working with both landowners in the future to see what we might be able to make possible in this part of the town. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else in favor? Seeing no one, anyone in opposition? Seeing no one, the public portion is closed. Back to the council for recommendation.
Again, I'd like to thank everyone. Again, both the Blant families and then the Sears, and all of these have come together, who have been able to, master and everybody has come together to do these kind of commitments to be able to move forward. Thank you.
Would you like to make a motion as well?
I'd like to make a motion that we send the substitute version into the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Now you can say second if you like.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Clerk Fowler, would you please read 45?
There's no more actions.
Oh, yes.
Pursuant to state statute, the council cannot vote for passage of the annexation ordinance until 14 days have passed since the public hearing. So anyone who is waiting until the end of the night for the council to pass or reject the ordinance, that's not going to happen until the next meeting.
Do we need a specific motion to send those to next week, or does it just automatically happen?
Yeah.
Just happens? Okay, great. Clerk Fowler, would you please read 4518?
4518, public hearing on an ordinance of the common council of the city of South Bend, Indiana, setting the annual salary for the mayor for calendar year 2019.
Is there a committee report, please?
Yes, the Personnel and Finance Committee held a committee meeting and public hearing on Bill 4518. We send this bill to you with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a presenter, please?
Good evening, Council. Jen Hockenhall, City Controller, offices on the 12th floor of this building. The ordinance you have in front of you tonight is requesting a 2% increase over the 2018 salary for the mayor, which is consistent with the council and the clerk and most of the non-bargaining positions that we have today.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Seeing none, move to the public portion. Anyone from the public wishing to speak in favor? Anyone in opposition? Seeing no one, the public portion is closed. Back to the council.
Move for a favorable recommendation.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Clerk Fowler, would you please read 4618?
4618, public hearing on an ordinance of the common council of the city of South Bend, Indiana, setting the annual salary for the common council members for calendar year 2019.
Is there a presenter, please?
Yes, Tim Scott, 711 Forest Avenue, President of South Bend County Council.
On a committee meeting?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Karen, yes. Committee report, please.
The Personnel and Finance Committee held a committee meeting and public hearing on Bill 46-18. We send this bill to the council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Presenter, please.
Yes, Tim Scott, 711 Forest Avenue, South Bend, Indiana, 1st District, and President of the South Bend Common Council. This ordinance raises the South Bend Common Council salary by 2% from $19,411 to $19,799, a $388 increase.
Are there any questions for the presenter? Seeing none, we'll move to the public portion. Anyone from the public wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing no one, the public portion is closed. Back to the council. What's your pleasure?
Motion to approve. Send to the floor, council with favorable recommendation.
Second. All those in favor? Aye.
Nay.
Anyone opposed?
Nay.
Okay, one nay. The motion carries. City Clerk, would you please read 4718?
4718, public hearing on an ordinance of the common council of the city of South Bend, Indiana, setting the annual salary for the South Bend City Clerk for calendar year 2019.
Personnel and Finance Committee held a committee meeting on 4718. We send this bill to you with a favorable recommendation.
Is there a presenter, please? Okay.
Yes, Karima Fowler, South Bend City Clerk, offices on the 4th floor of the County City Building. Requesting a 2% increase, which is consistent with the rest of the elected officials, council, and mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, move to the public portion. Anyone from the public would like to speak in favor? Anyone from the public like to speak in opposition? Seeing no one, the public portion is closed. Back to the council.
Move for favorable recommendation.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? The motion carries. City Clerk, would you please read 4818?
4818, public hearing on an ordinance of the common council of the city of South Bend, Indiana, fixing annual maximum wages for Teamster employees for calendar year 2017 through 2020.
Is there a committee report?
Personnel and Finance Committee held a committee meeting on Bill 48-18. We send this bill to you with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a presenter?
Good evening, John Hockenhall, City Controller, offices on the 12th floor of this building. The ordinance before you is for the Teamsters employees, and it was just to reaffirm the contract that was approved on October 19th of 2016. There are no changes from last year.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council? Seeing none, we'll move to the public portion. Anyone from the public wishing to speak in favor? Anyone from the public wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing no one, the public portion is closed. Back to the council.
Move for favorable recommendation.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Clerk Fowler, would you please read 4918?
4918, public hearing on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, reaffirming ordinance number 10472-16 and fixing the annual pay and monetary fringe benefits for sworn members of the South Bend Police Department for calendar year 2019.
Personnel and Finance Committee held a committee meeting and public hearing on Bill 49-18. We send this bill to you with a favorable recommendation.
Presenter, please.
Good evening, John Hockenhall, City Controller, offices on the 12th floor of this building. The ordinance before you relates to our police department sworn members, and it was the agreement that was approved on October 25th, 2016, and there are no changes from last year.
Thank you. Any questions for presenter? Seeing none, we'll move to the public portion. Anyone from the public wishing to speak in favor? Anyone from the public wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing no one, the public portion is closed. Back to the council.
Motion to send to this full council favorably.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Clerk Fowler, would you please read 5018?
5018, public hearing on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, reaffirming ordinance number 10549-17, fixing the annual salaries and monetary fringe benefits for sworn members of the South Bend Police Fire Department for calendar year 2019.
Personnel and Finance Committee held a committee meeting on Bill 50-18. We send this bill to you with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a presenter, please?
Jen Hockenhall, City Controller, offices on the 12th floor of this building. The ordinance before you relates to the fire department sworn members and their annual salaries, which was approved on October 23rd of 2017, and there are no changes from last year.
Thank you. Any questions for presenter? Seeing none, we'll move to the public portion. Anyone from the public wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing no one, the public portion is closed. Back to the council.
Make motion to send 5018 to the full council favorably.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Clerk Fowler, would you please read 5118?
5118. So,
Read it and we'll do this up.
public hearing on an ordinance to fix maximum salaries and wages of appointed officers and non-bargaining employees for the City of South Bend, Indiana for the calendar year 2019.
Make a motion to accept the sub.
Second? Oh, sorry. Is there a second? There's going to be, yeah, that's okay.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed before committee report? I think we have a...
Yes, before committee report. Just as a matter of transparency and in consultation with our council attorney, my wife works for the city in BPA, and so I would ask that, again, under the advice of our attorney, ask that the council tell me if that's a substantial conflict by a vote, correct?
I mean, if we're asking for opinions, I would say that I do not see it as a substantial conflict, but I would, again, I think Bob can probably provide advice. I don't think there's any harm in recusing yourself from a vote. Right. And I would not, right, as a council member, I would not object to you recusing yourself from the vote. But do I think there's a substantial conflict? I would say no. But again, I would not object to you.
So process-wise, Bob?
Process-wise, somebody should make a motion either to have him recuse himself for a potential conflict or to vote that he does not have substantial.
I make a motion that Mr. Jake Teschka is allowed to vote that there is no direct supervision and no direct conflict with his wife working for the Parks Department. I'm voting on 5118.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion. Oh. Okay.
Precedent setting reasons?
Yeah. I put an eye on that too.
Or subject him to possible domestic violence.
So do we have a...
7-2.
Do we have, it was a 7-2? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah, again,
Where was it? Who was the 7-2?
Me.
You, okay. You and Jeff, okay, 17.
Again, I think, and you can, I'll defer to council attorney here, but I think, yeah, technically you can vote based on the council, but I still think if you wish to abstain, I still think you're welcome to do that in this circumstance. Yes. Okay, with that, is there a committee report, please?
Oh, yes. This is Bill 5018?
5118.
Okay.
And it's a sub.
Substitute Bill 5118, the Personnel and Finance Committee heard this bill and had a public hearing. We send this to you with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a presenter, please?
Good evening, Jen Hockenhall, City Controller, officer on the 12th floor of this building. The reason that this is a substitute bill is because we've added a position for Chief Code Inspector. The job description was provided to council, I believe, on Friday for that. It relates to a position to oversee all of the code inspectors to free up the time of the director and deputy director of code enforcement. It's not to add an additional person or a full-time employee. It's simply to add a position to promote someone to or to hire within if there is a decrease in the number of code inspectors. We did meet on September 19th at the request of council last year to have an in-depth discussion of all changes on the salary ordinance this year that were over 2% or were a title change or were new positions. So hopefully we've answered all of your questions. However, if you have more, we're happy to answer.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Seeing none, we'll move to the public portion. Anyone from the public wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing no one, the public portion is closed.
Make a motion to send the sub 5118 to the full council with favorable recommendation.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Council Attorney, do we discuss the other bills in third reading or now?
Third reading.
In third reading, okay. Entertain a motion to rise and resolve from the...
So moved.
Second.
What?
Which other?
No, I think he's asking, is there a chance to discuss these?
No, not the bills we just heard, but the bills that were continued in the council portion only.
Yeah, we do that. We do that.
We'll do that during third reading,
Full
not now.
discussion, and that's only at the council. There's no public.
We'll resolve out of the committee of the whole.
That's correct.
Okay, great.
That's
Just wanted to make sure. Motion to rise and resolve from the committee of the whole.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion
I wasn't sure. This is what I was going to think about it.
Oh, yeah, okay, that's the one I said I was going to say.
Yeah. Friday. I just said we can come back and discuss all this stuff beforehand. Appropriate tonight. There's a lot of changes.
I'll do that right now. Before we get into third reading, I want to inform my council colleagues that by state law, we have to sign some documents that the clerks have. It's basically on the council budget. This is part of the state law. It's how you voted on these items of the general budget, and you got to sign your name, how you voted, and I think date, and that's it. So before you leave tonight, please sign those because we need to get those downstairs.
Can we have a clarification on that in terms of with those documents? That reflects only bill number
3818.
1 second. That would just 3818, 3918, and 40? Or which ones does it?
It will be 3818.
Civil City.
3018.
The levy,
Huh?
3818, 3918, and 4018,
41.
and also 4118, all four of those.
So the four things that we'll be signing. Okay, and so depending on, okay. And that's notable because sometimes when I know in media has shared different times, people vote for, vote against, or whatever. Sometimes you vote for two of these and two, or three and one, and it's not necessarily to say that you vote against the city budget because of the fact that the city budget is comprised of a lot of different parts of budgets. And so you just didn't vote for all of it, or you voted for some. Is that not correct, Mr.
Correct.
Okay, thank you so kindly for that.
Okay. So for third reading, Ms. Fowler, would you please read 3818?
3818, third reading on an ordinance of the city of South Bend, Indiana, levying taxes and fixing the rate of taxation for the purposes of raising revenue to meet the necessary expenses for the civil city of South Bend for the fiscal year ending in December 31st, 2019.
I think Robert's rules, I would, what was that?
Is this a sub? 3818 is a sub, isn't it?
Mm-mm.
It's not?
No, 3418.
It is.
Yes, it's
It's a sub.
Motion to accept the sub?
Before we even have point of order, before we have that, can we get some clarity on this issue? There's I hear cloudiness in the air. I hear opinion there, opinion here, and opinion with our attorney.
Hi, Jen Hockenhall, City Controller. This is a substitute bill because the original bill that we filed for first reading was blank. It had no numbers in it. And then we filed a substitute for second reading, which had the numbers in it.
Motion to accept the sub?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you for the clarity.
Typical Robert's rule is to ask for a motion and then have discussion. So, is there a motion?
Motion.
Motion to have discussion.
No, hang on.
Motion for passage.
Thank you. Is there discussion on 3818? Sub.
So just for the purpose of the, those in the audience, can we just ask, Ms. Hockendahl to give a 30-second presentation on what's necessary for? That's all I would request for this record.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Councilman, I couldn't hear
Just
you.
give us a recap, a summary. I see most of the people in here's audience are from city anyway, but for those, and just for the record, just summarize what we're about to vote on, please.
Sure. So what, do you mean just for 3818 or all four?
That's 3818. I'm
I'm
asking
sorry,
everything
yes.
with that.
3818
That's correct,
is
ma'am.
simply the tax rates that we're voting on that were calculated by the DLGF Gateway program. They don't affect the caps that we have in place, but they just allow us to, the state to divvy up the property taxes according to those rates.
Thank you.
I appreciate that, man. That's what I wanted. Thank you. For my piece.
Any discussion? Any comments from council? This is council portion only? None? Seeing none.
Motion to end discussion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye. Motion to approve.
We already have a motion for passage. We need a second.
Second.
All right, Ms. Fowler, 3818. On the sub.
3818. Councilmember Teschler,
Aye.
Vice President Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Gordon,
Aye.
Councilmember Furley,
Aye.
Councilmember White,
Aye.
Councilmember Preston, Councilmember McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Broden, President Scott,
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. We're going to mix it up. We're just going to go straight to discussion after Ms. Fowler reads 3918.
3918, third reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, appropriating monies for the purpose of defraying the expenses of several departments of Civil City of South Bend, Indiana, for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2019, and ending December 31st, 2019, including all outstanding claims and obligations, and fixing a time when the same shall take effect.
Thank you. Ms. Hockenhall, would you just please give a brief description of this bill?
Of course. Jen Hockenhall, City Controller, offices on the 12th floor of this building. We are simply voting on the Civil City portion of the budget that we've been talking about starting on May 22nd over the course of the last several months. Is that brief enough, or would you like more?
Does anybody need anything else? Thank you. Any comments from council?
Yes.
I want to make sure that
Ms.
as
White.
from a council perspective, in terms of this bill, are there any areas that we need to have further discussion on?
Vice President Davis.
Yes, Ms. White, thank you for asking that question. I sent out a letter on Friday which I'll read for the record, and says, "Greeting, Ms. Hockenhall. Please kindly know that as was publicly discussed during the last South Bend Common Council ZNA committee meeting on September 24, 2018, there was an earnest concern about moving forward with the approval of a budget that includes funds to create the City of South Bend Zoning Board in 2019, tentatively scheduled to commence during the summer of 2019. Our last South Bend Common Council ZNA committee highlighted some of the many issues which need to be worked out prior to the funding of the City of South Bend Zoning Board taking place, including the creation and the review of the City of South Bend's ordinance to authorize such an action taking place. As in many other previous city matters, when all of the needed concerns have been resolved, a request can be made by the City of South Bend administration to the South Bend Common Council seeking the appropriations of funds at a later date. Henceforth, it's being requested to proceed with the City of South Bend's budget without without this action being funded within the 2019 city budget. Further meetings will be proposed to have this discussion so that we can properly proceed with the discussion on the city level. And so, an example of that you can see even this afternoon. Zoning and annexation issues have come before this council, are probably one of the most challenging and heated issues that we deal with. And there's a lot of things that I am for, I've publicly stated, and August South Bend Tribune, that I see the need for this. I just like to have seen that worked out in that same article. It was presented that we would have an ordinance to fund something and then come back and do it around. Doesn't make sense to me. I understood my council president has shared that his disagreement with this concept, but I believe that we need to keep the control right here at the budget. But our statutory obligation is to be in control of the budget. For us to put parameters or do that, we've stated those kind of things before, but I don't see too many different examples when we have come back to really have those kind of things. I believe that we have had a pattern of too many major issues in that that have dealt from community investment that we have found out regarding this at an area plan meeting or at a later date that we have to come back even tonight to help clean up. I believe that we can really take the time to come together, craft out a plan. We just had a highlight, and if I had not initiated that highlight from our last meeting, it wouldn't have happened. It would have only been in the budget and moved on and then later on. And I think we can do better than that. This does not stop us from saying this idea is not there, but it gives us the opportunity here as a council to work out things. We can appropriate funds. It's nothing new from us being able to do that. And I think that given the fact that we need to look at the impact of 8 of the 9 members coming from the mayor's office, of course we still have one from the city council office, we need to look at the impact of the legalities of that. I asked in the first budget meeting, Ms. Stephanie Still, how was the legalities were going to be handled with that. Never got a response back. I even never got a response back. I know it's Friday, but they could still send me something back and say we heard your concerns or something, but never got a response back even from the administration on this question. And from that standpoint. So we are in a situation where, as your zoning and annexation chair, I don't get responses back. I don't get responses back. I went to an area plan meeting and we found out we had farmers out there. Didn't get a response back from that. And so these are kind of things that it's not just a personal Oliver Davis versus administration issue. This is something that affects us all. And I think that we need to have this major kind of piece carved out and handled, and we can have discussions with our zoning and annexation committee. We can do that. And then it doesn't take us long. It doesn't take Dr. Mueller himself said that the ordinance wouldn't take long. And so therefore, I don't understand why it wasn't proceeded prior to this time. And it has not been done. I think we need to have more strength in this, handing everything over to the administration. I even have concerns with our current president voting for everything else for the administration, but when it comes to the council, votes against the budget. We have to learn how to respect the council's response and give teeth to the council and not just be seen as just a rubber stamp for all of that kind of things. And this is one of the key things that we have to look at from that standpoint. I appreciate it, and I would ask for your support to delay and I even make a recommendation and a motion to pull that out of this budget at this present time, and then come back and after we've had enough discussion that this council has approved on, would then appropriate the funds to proceed given the nature of that. I make that motion.
Question.
Question on the motion?
No, I have a question in terms of discussion.
Okay.
Because we're just in the discussion portion.
Fine. But then I will rephrase, I would like to be able to...
You'll have the first chance to make a motion after the discussion's done.
I appreciate that.
I would like to ask Council Member Davis, I heard your concerns, and is there any way that we could put in parameters? Because monies will not be utilized moving forward until if this is concern of other members of the council, I would like to hear that as well. But is there a way that we can still have the level of conversations, the parameters, the areas that you and others may have concern, and still be able to move forward?
I think parameters can be set up, but not between tonight and midnight. I think if we were going to look at parameters, then given the fact that the budget has to be approved and which by November 1st, and which this council has done when that question has been asked of you, then we have delayed the vote until the 22nd, or the last meeting in October, for us to be able to put all the parameters right here in an open meeting and have our discussion with attorneys, to have different representatives from, I don't see anybody from everybody from area planners. There's nobody even in the audience from the expertise level that we can have that kind of discussion here tonight. None of them are here. I did let them know that I was going to have this discussion. So just to be able to put those parameters in, I don't see the expertise in the audience that can help us to be able to do that tonight, and that's my concern. Now, to hold up the entire budget for that period of time is something that we may not want to do. So therefore, given the fact that not to hold up the entire budget for that, then to just pull that part out, come back and do that, and then we can do it again for appropriations. Because I can live with parameters, really, from that standpoint, but to create those parameters tonight without giving the appropriate people and the legal advice and the people to do that, I can't see how I can do that.
I want to hear
That
from
makes sense?
other. I understand what you're saying, and it makes sense, and I just want to make sure if there's other concerns, and also we could even get input from community investment and just to see, what that would look like. But I know we're only at the council
And please know
portion.
that, please know that community investment, again, was at the meeting that we had on the 24th.
Yes.
And I have not heard any correspondence from them regarding any of those concerns. And also, they were also CC'd on this letter along with Ms. Mayor Pete. So there was no response from them. So to me, to really have their input tonight, since this is supposed to be on the council portion only, I think it's a concern, because we were working through letters and everything else, and that's why I would have concerns with them having this discussion to hold it up now at this present time, even though, I will listen to that, but the thing about it is, given the nature of the lack of communication through this on such a key issue for the city, where we've been very transparent with the city regarding our concerns, I think we have to have some concerns with that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Joe Broden.
I would support pulling this from the budget at this time with the intent of, further deliberations, more collaborative effort on it, a fuller understanding. Mr. Davis, you've been a longtime chair on the Area Plan Commission, and you have been a longtime chair on zoning. So respectfully, I think you have a voice of authority on this, and I guess out of due respect to your leadership and this request, I would concur with you, and I know that you have brought it up as some concerns, as have I, and they were multifaceted, and I guess I too don't feel comfortable with pulling the trigger on this and saying, yes, go full bore on it, but at the same time, I recognize some need for some changes. However, I think council can get at that in a collaborative way going forward. And I would agree with, if we, I guess we should have learned our lesson in some way with the way the HPC went down last year in terms of, kind of coming to the council and really not sort of the collaboration, the information, and the education. And I should acknowledge, there's been a number of pieces in terms of job descriptions, in terms of individual discussions, but I think we all have a benefit when we look at it collectively, and I do think that piecemeal sometimes things get missed, and there's miscommunications, And so I guess I would support your motion, Mr. Davis, or Councilman Davis, but with the intent that, to let the next couple of months sort of let Department of Community Investment or, whoever has a stake in this actually come forward and sort of work through this in a more, open and opportunities to ask questions. And I do, I would acknowledge that I too, in my comments, which I didn't share across council through emails, because I don't think that is appropriate, but I too asked this same question, not only in committee, but I also asked it of the administration and specifically for Department of Community Investment. And I did have a very long and lengthy conversation on a Friday night, late Friday night, with Mr. Mueller before either of us left the office here. And I'm grateful for that, but that's a benefit and a knowledge that I have. It's not a benefit and a knowledge that perhaps, because I don't know who has what information, but that the rest of the council may or may not have, but certainly the public. And I do think being able to discuss these things in a more public, the pros, the cons, and I'm on the record for the issues that I had with this and that I asked, and I am not at the point where I feel comfortable that those issues have been addressed.
Anyone else? Well, Jake and then Gavin.
Oh, I don't.
So, I thought you had a question.
Not on this particular.
Okay.
If we're going to keep this line of discussion,
All right,
I'd rather
we'll do
keep this unbroken. So.
Okay. All right, Gavin, and then I have a comment.
Sure. No, so certainly respect Oliver's leadership and not only on APC but also for ZNA for so long. The one thing that at least gives me confidence here, and I'll want to defer and hear the rest of the council, but we would need to hear, and I just want to confirm with our council attorney, we would still need to entertain an ordinance to make these changes, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so while I do agree that I think the process could have been much better, and I think it could have been handled better, I personally am okay with planning for something like this in the budget and seeing that we have the funds available in the budget and having a bigger discussion around the ordinance. But that's not to say I don't disagree with you in terms of, right, that the approach could have been much better, and yeah, I think your points are certainly valid, but in terms of my perspective, I do think that planning for it in the budget, at least me personally, I am comfortable with that, but certainly want to have a much bigger discussion when we look at that ordinance.
I agree too. Almost verbatim, Councilman Furlick. I trust your leadership and your wisdom on zoning and annexation. I look at it a different way, and it's not as a rubber stamp to the mayor. I look at it from a business standpoint. When we start a new project, we put together a budget. We put together what that money and that allocation is going to be like before we start that budget. What are we going to end up spending on it? So we have those resources to go about doing it. If along the way it changes, it can change, and you can pull that out. You can reallocate those funds elsewhere. Again, us setting a budget tonight, any part of this is a potential. This is saying this is what we're planning on doing in 2019. I think that we can still control and lay out those parameters and lay out those goals and objectives of what needs to be done. I'm fully aware I have so many issues in my district that have to deal with building and zoning. I'm dealing with one right now that right now there's really no teeth in the matter to a zoning issue. So that's why I believe we need to do it within the city. I'm fine with setting the budget. I don't think there's anything wrong with setting that budget tonight and then getting into the parameters. I agree with Gavin. Some may not agree with the way HPC went. I don't think it was handled well either, but what it was the budget was set, it was approved, it was going forward, and then they came to us with the ordinances, the processes, and honestly, you talk to the people in HPC and with the city, I think it's a better program than it was before, and I think the people are actually better happier and more productive than what they were before. I'm hoping the same thing out of building and zoning. I literally have a junkyard going up in a residential area, and, we'll send a letter, and not getting the response that I think the city would do. So, as I said to you today, I respectfully disagree. I understand your point. My point is set the budget, and then we can work out the details on the rest of it. Just because the budget is set doesn't mean it actually has to be implemented until the ordinances are put forth to us, and we can have a say in that. We can have as many committee meetings on that as you want, to make sure that it all reaches the parameters, the goals, and objectives that we want to see too. So that's my comment.
Question to you, Pam. You as the chair or the attorney, do I respond to any of these at the end or at the end or on the one
discussion?
Karen had a point too. I don't know.
Oh, hang on. Okay. Did Karen, you had a question? Or a statement?
Looking at, the issue that's before us and looking at our past experiences with HPC, and I do respect your leadership on zoning and all the work that you've done, and I would not want this one issue to impact the Bill 3918. And I think that if we, as a council, I don't know where council members are at, if we were to pull this out, then I would like to have a time frame, set the meetings, and we need to move forward, and we all need to be at the table. Because I think it's important that we have this. We know that a number of our zoning issues, that many of them are from the city, impacts the city, and we know that from our past experiences that zoning tends to be probably one of the biggest areas that we have a lot of discussion. We have to do a lot of pulling people together to talk and to really come up with what's best. I think a good example was what happened today. And so for me, I would like to know, set the date, council members be here, do the work, and so that we can move forward as quickly as possible. But doing the work and making sure that every council member, that your questions, that you address those questions, that you get the answers, and then we continue to move forward, and I think that will help shape that ordinance as well.
Regina?
I hear what you're saying, Karen, and I think that's really important, because if we do vote to pull that out, in rounding out the third year of doing this, I've seen already how many times we kind of go forward with something and say, okay, we're going to do this, this, and this, and then we kind of just forget. It's not intentional. It's, always done with the best intentions. But, so many things kind of get forgotten or left behind or not really done. So I would agree with Councilwoman White that if we did decide to do that, how can we make sure that we've also got some time frames attached to that, so we're moving it forward? Otherwise, this is something that actually has to be done. So.
Question for you, Vice President Davis. If this was pulled out tonight, is it something that you could look at a scope and a parameter for and I don't know if we can do this, a separate budget item for this?
It's an appropriation.
So it would be appropriation?
Yeah.
Okay.
In my last paragraph.
No, I was thinking before the end of this month, that in 2 weeks that we would have some type of scope to put together something for the budget to get it passed before November. That's all I was thinking. I don't know if you were thinking that or not.
Probably wouldn't. Yeah, probably be an appropriation for a future.
Okay. I personally thought about that, but I thought about that when I was telling you you had stepped out for the shooting.
Yeah.
In that
sorry, I missed it.
No, I understand, because even the ordinance, I had said that if we put an ordinance on how fast we could get an ordinance done to all that, it wouldn't match up with the time that we needed to vote for the budget. And so that's why I put in my last henceforth is being questioned. But further meetings will be proposed, and I can propose those immediately. I mean, I think that I would suggest, and on the 22nd, which would give us enough time to have consulted with the administration and everything else for us to do a calendar. Because one of the things that I think is important when setting a budget, and I agree that you set up a budget and you can do all those things, but even prior to setting the budget, you got to set the vision. And you got to set the vision, you got to even talk about the vision, you got to even set that, because we may need more, we may need less, we may need all this. That's why I was asking, but what kind of expertise do we need, what kind of other things? Because the way the current thing talks about is everybody else coming from the various settings and things. Now they're all coming from the city. And so what do we have to have that discussion? We can put it together, it won't take long. And we can look at that. So this is not something to drag out, to push that, because again, I've already publicly stated that I think we need to go. I mean, if you come to area plan meetings, it's pretty much me sitting in that third seat over there talking, not because I feel like doing that some days, it's because much of half the agenda is South Bend City Council. Now 60% of the agenda, sometimes 70% of the agenda. So those are the kind of things. So I do see the need for it. But it's just wanted to, before we move over there, just to work it out. Just like tonight, we worked it out, and it was so much easier. So Councilwoman Williams, Preston, and Councilman White, I can set up a timetable, and we can have that all ironed out in 2 weeks.
So have it ready to meet the budget guidelines.
The budget guidelines is going. I'm talking about a timetable for us to talk.
And then the end result is to.
The end result is for us. In my letter that I stated is that where we can do an appropriation for that.
Okay.
And so that where I know the administration had talked about starting something in the summer, 2018. We can look at is that the best? I've talked to some other people who said starting January 1 is the. Give or take both of them, they have good arguments on both sides. We can discuss that. I don't have any hard, fast kind of issue. Sometimes I like starting things at the same calendar year from that standpoint. And so if there's anything I would lean towards that. But outside of that, I'm cool. And so, I just think that we just need to have that discussion and division, then we can either set that, and also, hopefully, since Dr. Mueller said that it won't take long for them to do an ordinance, they can even have a reading of the ordinance ready for this year. We can get the ordinance out before the end of the year. You got my point?
Okay.
2 weeks. But hang on, Ms. Slade, anything else?
No, I just want to get that clarity and make sure that
I just think
we can meet those.
That's why I think that the issue of when you said that clarity part of it, I think we can set this calendar and again, appropriate dollars to see what do you need from this. We can't, until you have that meeting to sketch where we're going to go with this kind of, the impact of what I was sharing with you on our last meeting, you heard all the discussion. Let's have that discussion. And if we had it prior to that time, it would have been great. But I was very clear in the very first meeting of the meeting we had, and even prior to that, of how we're going to deal with the legal standpoint, because a lot of zoning is straight up legal.
Gotcha.
Okay.
All right.
So she had some.
Yeah.
Ms. Williams.
Kevin.
I think there's a lot of good points here, and I would be comfortable either way, but again, I think as long as our goal is to make this happen, I'll defer to Councilmember Davis, and I'll support.
That's my letter. That's what the South Bend Tribune has. I mean, there's no change in that. It's just trying to tonight's even hesitation about moving forward. Y'all kind of saw why I was hesitant about. I'm talking about this afternoon when I walked in here, because not that I tried to stop any kind of zoning thing, but given all the things out here.
Yep.
Sometimes it's with zoning I've learned to not be in the fast lane, but to be in a not even too slow either, but in that moderate lane that can help us get through.
Okay.
Councilman Bordy.
Quite frankly, I agree with the things that you and Gavin said, and would be ready to go ahead tonight, but...
Actually,
you've changed your...
I'm comfortable.
I think you've got to fund it in the budget, and then if you want to talk about it, if it doesn't work out or you don't want to spend it, you don't spend it. Still got to come back to us.
If Vice President Davis guarantees me that we're going to have this within our city...
I'm holding to it.
I think there's an easy timeline on this, right? I mean, we usually do these special appropriations, correct, in March, right? So, I mean, that's plenty of time, especially the last... Well, you can do it anytime, but we typically do it. But I think my understanding was Q3 anyways, right? So, we can hit this in terms of an ordinance, everybody's level of comfort with it, the broader public's understanding of it, within the first quarter. So, to me, it's half a dozen.
Anything from the second and third districts? Nope. I would like the administration to weigh in, just any perspective of what they're hearing. I'm sure you've been following, James.
Yes, good evening, council members. James Mueller, Executive Director of Community Investment, with office on the 14th floor of this building. So we took to heart Chairman Davis's point at the last committee hearing, and we conferred with the Area Plan Commission staff what it would mean, what this ordinance would mean. And so, as we explained at the committee hearing 2 weeks ago, the idea is that we've been trying to look at our zoning ordinance as a whole, and I think we've had a pretty good, with Chairperson Davis and the planning team, I think we've had a really good process that's been set up, where we've had regular updates and a lot of communication between both planning team and council. And so the idea is, as part of the bigger reform of the zoning ordinance, which is we're a little behind now than what we wanted to. So what the budget was trying to do was to get the resources for the staff members. So there's only one net new position in the budget for this. So we're looking for staffing resources at the beginning of the year, even though we're not looking to even make the change for the Planning Commission till later in the year. So the budget really is a request for resources to help us move this through the process. And so one idea was, as we're looking at this code, and that'll be a very interactive, we'll have, a good process, updates regularly with council and the public, is that the person who could be administering the zoning ordinance, this new ordinance that we work on together, would have familiarity with it, so we don't put them in a position to fail on day one, saying we're switching over to this new ordinance and now we're hiring staff. And we want more continuity and make sure we don't skip a beat. So that was the approach. I have taken to heart the concerns of, are we doing, putting the budget before the ordinance? We understand it, but area plan staff says this is actually, there's no simple, the ordinance, it would be as part of the zoning reform. They think that would be they recommended that as the obvious path. Like, if we're going through this process together, when we do the zoning reform update, we would switch then to the Municipal Advisory Commission. And we can talk about that, all through, from now until mid to late next year. The timing hasn't been set, as I said. We don't know exactly how that process is. We're already farther behind because we don't have the resources. And so we're just looking for the idea here was looking for some staff resources to help us move this forward. So since the committee meeting 2 weeks ago, I've been trying to think of what can we do to reach this middle ground. Unfortunately, by the time I had realized this was an issue, I had seen your support in the paper, we had met. If you mentioned that you wanted to do something first before the budget, I must have missed it, and I apologize if we missed that process. But, so by the time it came to attention 2 weeks ago, it's too late to do an ordinance, as you know, before tonight. There could be a resolution. It's not necessary, or it's not binding, and it's an extra step, but we could have done that. Especially if we had a little previous notice. So I'm not saying I'm just saying that's where we've been, and I don't know how to solve that. So we're asking for staffing resources and a budget, and knowing that this conversation on the zoning ordinance will continue and have a lot of interaction, but and that we think that's what a lot of the budget is looking for staffing resources and overall programmatic budgets. So that's what the request really is, with the intention that we're looking toward both. We've talked about over time reforming the zoning ordinance and making sure that works for us, and potentially forming our own municipal advisory planning commission. So I feel like we generally, your comments earlier today on the annexations, those were great points. I'm glad we made that change. When I got word, I was sorry I wasn't able to be here. When I got word that this is what was being proposed, I said, well, that's a good idea. I'm surprised our team didn't come up, with something like that where we have that protection from some of these. So I don't know. I think part of it is just we've got to get better at communicating, especially. But the only thing earlier this afternoon was boy, are the owners going to agree to this? And so hours before, a vote is not the best time to be working these issues out. And so to what extent we can get, and similarly, if we had learned that, there was a desire from council to do either a resolution or look at this other step, we would have certainly tried to accommodate it. It's just, I didn't know that was, I just didn't know that was what was being requested of us. And I still don't know how we would do that. So even if we stripped it out of the budget today, I don't think we can look at appropriations for next year until next year, because you can't, I don't know if you can, I mean, this is a legal question for Bob, but I don't know if you can amend the 2019 salary or appropriation before 2019 starts. Because we send it down state in November, and then they do their review, and so there's that delay. And then second, we'd be back next year saying we need the resources first before we can do the changes. So we're going to have the same conversation about appropriations before an ordinance change. It's just we could do a resolution that just says, hey, we've talked about it. It would be non-binding. It doesn't do anything. We hadn't thought about that in the step. That's something we would have been open to even before if we had advance notice that was desired. So I don't know how to solve this conundrum. I wish we had a better answer here.
Can I make some suggestions on how to solve it?
Sure.
Thank you, sir. You shared, thank you for your comments there. Couple of things. When the South Bend Tribune came to the administration and came to me in that same night to do that article back in August, you saw my comments and it was very positive. I said those positive comments, and I'm an open meeting, and I'll just share it straight up. I like the idea in many ways, but even when they asked me that, I had not been talked to by the administration by what was going on. It had not come before the Zoning and Annexation Committee. And so I just said, fine it. And even that that article said that an ordinance was going to be with it. Okay? It's all inside of that and everything else. And none of that happened. Secondly, you shared that you met with the team from the area plan, and they shared you some thoughts and everything else. Since that time of the meeting, you talked with them about that. With all due respect, sir, this committee has asked me to chair the zoning, and also I'm at those area plan meetings and I work with that staff. What you just shared regarding the ideas and thoughts that came from the area plan, I'm hearing them for the first time while you're sharing them. That's my concern. A lot of times in meetings, I'm hearing them from the first time from the area plan. There was a whole big deal about the farmers that we had here, all these stuff, and I heard that in the meeting. What I've asked and what would be nice is, and even respectful, if there's projects going on in any one of my colleagues' district, okay, it should not hit the floor when they're finally finding out these kind of things, and then at large can say that, oh, we can just pass it on. We need to have some time to do our due diligence, to be able to, that issue today, one reason I was able to clear it up so quickly is I got up since that meeting, I saw it, and I've been calling those folks. I had breakfast with her. Ms. Broden came to me with breakfast. I had her own, so I had to work on clearing a lot of that stuff up before I even got to the meeting today. And so by the time I got there, I went back and shook everybody's hand, and everybody else was there and said, hey, y'all, we're going to try to go. I told them what we were going to do when we got here. Every side of it had been talked to before I got here and did that. That's what zoning's all about. It's going to neighbors. It's going to parishes. It's going to churches. It's going to imams. It's going to all these folks to clear up a lot of things before they even get to a meeting. It takes a lot of time. And so by the time we got here, it didn't take too long, and I didn't think they were going, and once we came up with the clear answers of what we're going to do, they were ready to answer it. That's where these kind of things should not be done on a Thursday afternoon when I'm just getting my packet for an area plan meeting you can't do that when it comes to zoning issues. You really shouldn't do any issues. But especially because you have to go back to neighborhood organizations, you got to go back to people, you got to talk to everybody. And I told them all these farmers who have been living, they all say how many years they've been out here. And they're all living around each other, and they all were upset with each other. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Well, and their point was, even though the gentleman said that the city, that they came to the city, all of them told me that the city came to them. And they have a whole other story, which I don't even go into that. I mean, I said, can we come to some agreement? What can we come to the agreement with? Well, if you do this, fine. So I had an idea tonight when I walked in here what kind of agreement they were going to accept if we could just have our colleagues in. And by the time everybody heard the agreement, we were good. That's why I'm saying that it takes on zoning things. But you have to work with me. I have to work with you. I have to work with the mayor. We can't be at meetings when this city is growing. You saw the paper on Saturday, and everybody, the mayor and everybody else should be proud about this. And in terms of the fact that the city got so much development, this is kind of a fun discussion. This is one of my first years on the committee and council that I can really fuss about the fact that zoning is wearing me out because we got so much development coming. Okay, it's a good problem to be worn out with from development. Trust me. Okay, so now since we got a lot of development coming, how are we going to manage it? When you have a company, you have a lot of good things coming, you can almost lose your company if you don't have a plan to manage it. That's all I'm talking about. So the idea of us being able to appropriate dollars down the road, I think we can do that real quick. My thing is, I was surprised, honestly, that the ordinance hadn't come in. It was already budget season, and it was right there. And so I thought that was going to show up. And so by the time we got down to it, my very first question in this whole budget thing was to Stephanie Still, and then go back and check it and ask, how are we going to do the legal standpoint? How are we going to set it up? Because I had not heard anything about the process, how we're going to be set up and everything else. And so that was my concern, that I had to do an thing. We need to work together, and I think we can. With all this development coming here and everything else, it won't take long. And we have, Mishawaka has a model from their standpoint. We have other models that we can look at, and we already have that. And those are the kind of things. So the pressure that my colleagues have said to put me on a time clock, I'm very grateful to do that publicly in front of them and work with you. We can clear up all the misconceptions, and we can move forward.
I'll just follow up with that real quick. Don't make best be the enemy of better. Don't. I think what we can get into probably cheaper on the allocation is why can't we set up the zoning laws that we already have for the county that are working for the city as city, and then go about the improvements and changes.
I agree.
Continue with business as usual, then get into, once you have your allocations, once you have everything, then look at making your improvements and changes. I think trying to come up with a whole new department with a whole new zoning and running it through this council might be a little daunting. Adopting what we already have and then making changes as we go throughout the year is probably going to be easier than what we're doing. I have to agree with a lot what Oliver said. Some of the biggest issues, and you know it, James, because I call you, Dan Buckenheimer, Beimer, Tim Corcoran, sorry, I always get his name wrong, is, what are we doing? We've had, what are we up on, 2-3 years here on council, 3 years? We've had nothing but, I feel like, messes that have come through with development that includes zoning. So, Kevin Throwing.
No, I was just going to ask, is there a way to make an appropriation prior to 2019 for 2019?
I do not believe so, because it will come out of the 2018 budget.
Fund 2018 and then 2019. You'd have to do it in 2019.
So we can do it in January.
We can do it anytime we want.
Do it in January.
But have it, okay.
And would, Oliver, just
In terms of the far deadline, I understand the need of the administration wants to start in the summertime, and so if that is a viable option, we have to move quick. Okay, so I understand that. If we see that we need to delay that sometime, then we need to have a decent reason why we delay that from that standpoint. I don't know of one right now. Okay, so therefore I recognize that yes, we have the quarterly appropriations. When I was thinking about that, I was not thinking personally about that being a part of the quarter. It can be a part of that, but I really thought about it being separate by itself for the appropriation. I'm not waiting on that.
So if even, what I'm hearing from the administration is that they need the staff to help them finalize the ordinance. Would it be okay with you, or would it be amenable to you if we looked at an early appropriation, even if the ordinance wasn't complete, but if we had a few more of those discussions? Would that be something that might keep things moving forward?
I'm open.
Okay.
Okay. Where the ordinance would need to finalize, so we have a little bit better idea?
I understand all of that. That makes sense to me.
Does that make sense to you?
It makes a lot of sense, because you have to have some seed money to roll with something anyway. I understand that. Okay? And so, therefore, but seed money is a whole different ballgame than having a whole program. You know? And so therefore, that's where we are. I recognize that we need to do that. We need to have that. Not that I want to add to any more of my colleagues, but if it's not me on the zoning next year or whoever's on that committee, there should be some representative from the zoning committee at those meetings with everybody. I got to still be with that anyway, no matter what. But it still is, we have 5 people, Ms. Yoakum is coming to me, between somebody, so it won't be said, well, the administration said this or what, we have to keep that loop in.
Here's a final thought.
Yes, go for it. I'm at peace.
Would it, instead of taking out the entire amount, like you said, you just got my mind thinking with like a little bit of funding, just making sure that if they did want to at least start the process in 2019, to maybe not take out the entire, maybe leave a little bit in there for them to be able to maybe start the process.
How much you need?
That's just.
Could I offer one suggestion?
Sure.
I think just to not give our controller a heart attack of how to figure out how to move all this stuff.
Sure.
What have we committed? We won't hire the new position until we have a consensus from the council. The only thing we've asked for in the budget in terms of this move is this one net new position. And so we can commit not to filling these positions until we have a consensus from the council. I'm just at this moment not to try to give, a nightmare of accounting that I don't know what.
Sure. Is that something you might be able to?
I'm looking at it. Okay. There seems some life in that. What's your thoughts? I'm open to your thoughts on that. Yes.
You got me?
No, she was. You can back up. You can answer, but Ms. McBride was raising her hand, so I was looking at her.
I think that's...
I'm sorry.
As a person I know I'm new to the council, but I've been presenting to the county council for 9 years in my role, so I understand a little bit about the appropriations. So you have to appropriate and put a number in there and bring it, before it could pass, you have to have something there. So I'm open for having it and then us having discussion, prior to. My thing is, I totally agree with everything that was said about the communication, about us getting together, but with true authenticity, being true as well to the council, I think some due diligence on our part has to take place as well. Like that we can have some conversation before the 11th hour, together to talk and to try to move things forward. So I just think that, to me personally, that taking some accountability that we could have had some discussion as well. I mean, I know individually it has been, but, instead of, just tonight saying, hey, where we're going, what we're doing, but I think that may be an appropriate step as long as we can talk going forward to clear it up. I don't have a problem moving forward.
Dr. Vorn, Dr. Vorn, I promoted you.
I think we should accept Dr. Mueller's suggestion that the money be left in the budget as long as he's willing to agree that money will not be spent to hire the person he's looking for until we have an ordinance formulated, and with the understanding that we want to get that done probably.
Well, I think like I said, the ordinance, even if we just Council President Scott mentioned, even if we took the ordinance today without a new ordinance, we want some ramp-up time for the staff. So I think we'd be looking for more discussion, a resolution, or something prior to the actual ordinance, so we could fill these positions and then implement whichever ordinance it is.
Upon what John said, as well as scope, objective, and ordinance.
Outcomes.
Vision.
You agree?
Well, I'd like to make a motion to that.
We still have Oliver.
Hang on. But I won. Joe?
So, your proposal, though, actually would be relative to 5118, right?
Correct. If we're just talking salary.
We're talking salary, though, so, or what other elements?
The scope.
There's the budget of the salary.
What's that?
There's the budget of the salary. In this.
Okay.
So the positions themselves were in the salary ordinance, but the salary for all the positions in DCI are in the salary ordinance.
Okay.
Okay.
Jake? Joe, bonus question.
Not
5
bonus
seconds.
question, I mean,
Comment.
quarterly stat reports to committee chairs, I think takes care of all of this, frankly.
What do you mean?
So
Oh, no, what do you mean?
a status report on a quarterly basis, especially when we have these big things, coming, reorganizations for departments, I think that helps. That helps bring everybody along, and the cards are out there, the benefit of the exchange can be there. You can still, go full bore forward, but you have that opportunity if it's a calendar. I mean, we're asking for it. Councilmember White is asking for it in respect, to her committee and the budget process. I think the same could be afforded to on zoning issues. I know I have benefited from stat reports from police and fire, and they've been phenomenal in terms of where we've been, short-term, where are we going, long-term, where are we going. Those types of touch points, I think, can help avoid a lot of this, we're part-time, you're full-time. We get to bridge the gap somehow, some way.
Yeah,
Or the
it's a
benefit,
challenge.
and we're not, it's not adverse.
Right. It's just the tool that you need.
The tool that most of us need being in the positions that we are.
Okay. All right. We all good down the line? Oliver, you had a motion out there. I think John made an improvement or amendment to it. Are you willing to accept that on your motion?
In terms of the fact that there's clarity, it will be put into
approval upon scope.
We could say consensus resolution.
consensus resolution.
Yeah, we can do that in 2 weeks.
The meetings too.
Line out all that.
Until we have a consensus resolution.
Yeah, we won't move forward until the work is done.
I can look at that, but no, the consensus resolution.
No, but like meetings.
It wouldn't be the full, because like what they're saying is they wouldn't want to do the full ordinance, they need that staff person to develop the full ordinance.
Okay.
If we had the resolution as a consensus, that we're on the right track, I think that's it.
And what we're line out, what we're going to do, goals and objectives.
The meetings and what we expect.
I can look at that.
Okay. So you amend your
I will
motion?
second Oliver's motion.
Amended,
Amended,
per Gavin.
amend that motion. I mean, I make that motion, given all the caveats that everybody gave me.
Okay.
In words, in honor of Reverend Rouse.
I'll try to restate it. So I'll make a motion for passage, subject to, before the, I don't know what the exact title is, but before the...
We won't fill the zoning administrator, the zoning specialist positions.
Yeah, until there is consensus from the council to do so in the form of a resolution.
Cool.
Second. All right. I just want to recap everybody. We are voting finally with that amendment to 3918.
That's correct.
One other question, not on that, and so it's okay. I'm at peace with you, but we're good. But to our attorney, what's up? In terms of the making sure that, let me just get this. Come on. Take that, just had it and go back to this. Okay, a question to our attorney. You said that the, regarding the rates increase is not in this, correct?
That's correct.
It's
And that, so voting on this budget will not say that we are in support of that,
That's correct.
That's correct.
okay.
That will be a separate ordinance that we will consider through all three readings and public hearings.
Question for you. Will any of our budgets for 2019 cover that already at all? And anticipate that, or that's just completely out of any budget items?
Nothing in the budget as it exists covers those increases.
So that's completely separate?
Yes.
Just want to make sure. Okay. I'm at peace then.
You might want to clarify.
Yeah, I think we need clarification on that because I don't think that's true.
Hi, real quick on that, so there is a separate fund set aside for the storm sewer. It's called the storm sewer fund. So it's not saying that it's increasing the water rates. It's simply a standalone fund. So as long as the ordinance passes and it goes through the public process, then that fund stands as is. If it doesn't, then that fund is just there, but no monies will be spent.
So creates a fund.
Pardon me?
The budget creates the fund.
The budget creates the fund, but there's no money that's
There are revenues.
It's a category, but there's nothing that's placed in the money until the ordinance is passed or whatever. That's correct.
There are anticipated revenues and expenditures in that fund. However, they will not be spent if the ordinance is passed, because there will be no money that goes into it.
That's what I'm saying. There's nothing. No.
So
there's money there, but there's no money there because if you can't spend the money, then there's no money.
Correct.
If I have $1,000 but I can't spend it, I have no money. I still go hungry at Taco Bell. Yes.
Don't start on the food.
Okay, cool. All right, thank you. I can give them a little plug because they take care of me all the time. But anyway, moving forward.
We're on our, all right, bring it back to me. We're on our motion
For 3918.
for 3918
A motion and a second.
as amended.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
So this is the whole salary ordinance?
No.
It's just 30, okay. This is the department, now I'm lost. When do I talk about what I want to talk about? That's what I want to know.
What do you want to talk
Right now,
about? Is it a simple city item?
it's simple, but
It's
around
simple.
the salary for the new position in code enforcement.
That's
Just salaries.
That's what?
That's
Unless
51.
Unless you want to take up money for, if you,
Yeah. No, you're good.
you're good.
You're good, right?
Let's do that salary.
All right, then I'm good. I just want to make sure I'm good.
All right, we have a motion for 3918 as amended.
Second.
All right, Ms. Fowler, roll call, please.
Vice President Davis?
It would start with me on this one, right? So, I says, hey, I made the own motion, so I'm not going to vote against my motion. Aye. Aye. All right.
Councilmember Furley?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember Preston?
Aye.
Councilmember McBride?
Aye.
Councilmember Broden?
Aye.
Councilmember Chester?
All right?
President Scott?
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. I was remiss not to recognize our mayor of South Bend, Pete Buttigieg. He's here. Thank you. So, only 2.5 hours late. So,
I'm tired.
Ms. Fowler, 4018, please.
Third reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, appropriating monies for the purpose of defraying expenses of the designated enterprise funds of the City of South Bend, Indiana, for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2019, and ending December 31st, 2019. Including all outstanding claims and obligations, and fixing the time when the same shall take effect.
Thank you. Ms. Hockenhall, would you please give a brief summary?
John Hockenhall, City Controller, offices on the 12th floor. This is simply voting on the enterprise funds, which are the business type activity funds, so water, wastewater, and those kind of things.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Again,
Yes.
since it's on the wastewater issues there, it has nothing outside of, and talk about that raise, that budget issue again. Just for clarity, just for anybody watching, talking, or whatever. This is not raising the rates of anybody's water rates, correct?
No, that would only be through an ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just going to ask the question again, making sure if there's any concerns, but Council President, I'm not in the seat you are, so I'll let you ask that question. Make sure as we move forward.
What was that? I'm sorry.
Oh, the same question I asked in regards to the ordinance 3918, to make sure that council members, if they have any questions, discussions, that we take time to do that now
Okay,
as we
thank you.
move forward.
Thank you. Anything, Ms. Broden?
Yeah, so with regard to the stormwater fund or prospective stormwater fund, just to indicate on, let me reference, we had a 2018 flood update, March of 27, so shortly after the 4 areas were hit. And just to recall that over a 3-year period, 1,758 calls to the sewer department regarding water, sewage, and basements. So that was citywide. And we all were the beneficiaries of a lovely red dotted map that would indicate that, and I want to enter that into the record tonight, if I might, as the importance of this fund being established, just to start, making some headway on this. I guess I also want to acknowledge in my comments that at the time that we discussed this in committee, and then had an opportunity to circle it, back around to it, our stormwater needs, and I'm guessing this is just the tip of the iceberg, but when push comes to shove, you do some numbers here, $2.9 million in terms of stormwater needs. That's our total, that's a snapshot of our needs. So that's kind of, in my opinion, taking this, if I'm wrong, somebody correct me, from the department, that's kind of taking this picture that was shared with us in March, then the rainfall, then all the price tags, come in to individual homeowners as well as to us as a city on our public assets in terms of, damage and, trying to make things whole. So, but getting back to this budget, we are only, with the 1.2 million that this fund is trying to establish with the combination of the flat fee for residents and then the tiered fee calculation, that would be for commercial properties or non-residential properties. I just want to, make the point that, we're only hitting half of our needs relative, to what has been what I would call legacy funding issue, legacy flooding issues across our city. So while we, nobody wants to, when it's difficult to add a fee to residents, residents are already paying for this, and they have historically been paying for this already. I commend the department for, proposing this fee, because to me it's has been deferred maintenance, similar to what we had with our Parks Department. Long-time things, unfunded, stealing from other areas in order to try to address some issues, but certainly not enough. So. It's not specific to the 4 areas that were recently hit. And it's citywide. It's again, legacy. So it affects all of our individual districts. And then my last point relative to this, though, is that when we met in committee, there was a top 10 list of projects. And I guess I would like to, similar to some of the discussion on the last bill, is get additional information on how those are the top 10 and, an understanding of equitably, even though I'm, a district representative, I do think we have to look at it in an equitable way in terms of, trying to spread around the resources that this fund would generate. So I would be eager, to sit in, having been one of the districts that got hit in 2016 and then again in 2018, to really be a part of the ongoing conversations about, the use of this to actually help with not only legacy, but then trying to look at more specifically at 2018 and the recommendations that are in the Lawson Fisher report. None of those recommendations are here in this prospective list. So I have concerns about that. So going forward, I would like to address that more, in a more targeted way. And I'm not arguing for my district, I'm arguing for, I think the fund is a great idea. The level, I think, is, as I said, only half of what I think is a tip of an iceberg anyway. Enough said.
Councilperson McBride.
Mr. President, my discussion that I had with administration was that I think that funding is definitely needed for the service. However, my district is split, that I have probably half impoverished, the other half affluent. And until we have a contingency plan in place when you're talking about square footage or income, how will you determine how to pay? Because while $24 may not be, a lot for myself or a reasonable person that's over the median income, it is a hardship on some of the people in my district, and not only because of the proposal, but you've had utilities increase for both gas and electric, with electric going up again January 1. And then just last week, I think Portage Township just lost funding for hardship, and also the Housing Authority, I think, losing vouchers. And so, in dealing with the population that I deal with of offenders, it is a hardship. And so, while we all should be accountable, and it's a citywide need, I also think that there should be a plan in place of whether it's a tiered approach or a delayed approach. It's definitely necessary, but we have to look at the overall picture, was my input.
I agree.
Thank you. Anything else?
I guess.
No? You're fine?
No, I actually probably should have spoke up during the last.
You already voted.
During the last ordinance, I know. I just want to, can I make a comment?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to thank you, Karen, for your leadership throughout this whole process. Just being new, obviously, it's a lot to take in, and I've done a lot of taking in. And thank you, Jen. And I've always gotten answers when I needed them from Dr. Mueller and Jatin and Mr. Perry. So I thank the administration for that. It's been a learning experience, and I look forward to, I know we talked earlier about doing more of a quarterly budget update. I look forward to being part of that process this next year. I really want to be engaged in the budget process. I do think there's areas where this budget falls short, and as you said earlier, let's not let the good be the enemy of or the person be the enemy of the good. When we look at the city survey that was commissioned, and we saw the results earlier in the year, 69% of our residents said that roads and sidewalks were number one priority, but only 19% were satisfied with them. I'd like to see some more funding for those things in the 2019 budget. And we also need to start looking at some of and we're starting with this stormwater fund, although I think there's some misconception about what this will do and who it will help. There's also a lot of aging infrastructure under our feet that we need to be concerned with moving forward. And so I think as a council, as a city, our task primarily is public safety and infrastructure. And I think in the next year and in the coming years, we're going to have to do a lot more hard budget decisions, and I want to be a part of that process. I don't want to be a hurdle. I want to be a part of that process. So I look forward to engaging all of you. Thank you.
Okay. Joe?
Yeah, sorry. I don't want to miss. I really do recognize and appreciate the consideration of the hardship. We do that with some of our other utilities, our other fees. So thank you for bringing up that point. I think we can get, to a place where, to me, this is an insurance program in some regards. Pay for it now or pay for it later. That's exactly what experience within my district has told me. And as I said, this is citywide. So to me, it's insurance. and it's inexpensive insurance.
Vice President Davis.
I think when we look at these kind of storms, then we can officially get back to this part. But there are several of us who are on, well, almost every single one of us to a certain extent, are on border districts. And I call a border district where you have a situation that's right next to the county. Where we have Chippewa issues, and we always have that big flood right on Chippewa. The problem comes up is sometimes it's the county side of it, then the city side of it, and it can get held up on issues like that. Or we fix the city side of it, but the county side of it is not fixed. And so you can't still use it because the city side, even though we put our side, the county hasn't done their part, or the county hasn't done their part to make it. I think we have to set up some kind of commissions, or, I don't know, forget about commissions, some kind of agreements, especially on those kind of issues when we have these things that we have a better understanding of how to utilize that, and all the money does not have to come out of these storms of our own city dollars, but there's no need to invest city dollars if the county hasn't done theirs, because the people still can't use the road. So we gotta just have that in mind. I'm ready to move forward.
Anything else to my left?
No.
Is there a motion on 4018?
Motion for passage.
Second.
Second.
Ms. Fowler? Start with Dr. Fowler.
Councilmember Gordon?
Aye.
Councilmember Furley?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember Preston? Aye. Councilmember McBride?
Aye.
Councilmember Broden?
Aye.
Councilmember Teschka?
Aye.
Vice President Davis?
Aye.
President Scott?
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. And now, Ms. Hill, we're finally to it. 4118, Ms. Fowler.
4118, third reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, appropriating, adopting, and approving the South Bend Public Transportation Corporation's 2019 budget and levying the tax and fixing the rate of taxation for the purpose of raising revenue to fund the South Bend Public Transportation Corporation, South Bend, Indiana, for the fiscal year ending in December 31st, 2019.
I don't think we need a recap to this. Anything to my right? Any questions, comments? To my left.
My piece.
Move for passage.
Second.
Ms. Fowler.
Councilmember Furley.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Councilmember Preston.
Aye.
Councilmember McBride.
Aye.
Councilmember Broden.
Aye.
Councilmember Teschka.
Aye.
Vice President Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Gordon.
Aye.
Councilmember Scott.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. 4518.
4518, third reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, setting the annual salary for the mayor for calendar year 2019.
Any discussion? These are all new, so
Motion to approve.
Second.
Ms. Fowler.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Councilmember Preston.
Aye.
Councilmember McBride.
Aye.
Councilmember Broden.
Aye.
Councilmember Teschka.
Aye.
Vice President Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Gordon.
Aye.
Councilmember Furley.
Aye.
President Scott.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. 4618.
4618, third reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, setting the annual salary for Common Council members for the calendar year 2019.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Ms. Fowler.
Councilmember Preston.
Aye.
Councilmember McBride.
Aye.
Councilmember Broden.
Aye.
Councilmember Teschka.
Aye.
Vice President Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Gordon.
Aye.
Councilmember Furley.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
President Scott.
Nay.
8 ayes.
Thank you. 4718.
4718, third reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, setting the annual salary for the South Bend City Clerk for calendar year 2019.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Ms. Fowler.
Councilmember McBride.
Aye.
Councilmember Broden.
Aye.
Councilmember Teschka.
Aye.
Vice President Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Gordon.
Aye.
Councilmember Broden.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Councilmember Preston.
Aye.
President Scott.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. 4818.
4818, third reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, fixing maximum wages of Teamster employees for calendar year 2017 through 2020.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Ms. Fowler.
Councilmember Broden.
Aye.
Councilmember Teschka.
Aye.
Vice President Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Gordon.
Aye.
Councilmember Phillips.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Councilmember Preston.
Aye.
Councilmember McBride.
Aye.
President Scott.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. 4918.
4918, third reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, reaffirming ordinance number 10472-16 and fixing the annual pay and monetary fringe benefits for sworn members of the South Bend Police Department for calendar year 2019.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Ms. Fowler?
Councilmember Teschka.
Aye.
Vice President Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Gordon.
Aye.
Councilmember Phillips.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Councilmember Preston.
Aye.
Councilmember McBride.
Aye.
Councilmember Roden.
Aye.
Vice President, President Scott.
Aye.
9 ayes.
5118.
5118, third reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, reaffirming ordinance number 1054917 and fixing the annual pay and monetary fringe benefits for sworn members of the South Bend Fire Department for calendar year 2019.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Vice President Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Gordon.
Aye.
Councilmember Curley.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Councilmember Preston.
Aye.
Councilmember McBride.
Aye.
Councilmember Roden.
Aye.
Councilmember Teschka.
Aye.
President Scott.
Aye.
9 ayes.
You said 58. He said 51.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But she actually read 58.
Right. She got it right, I got it wrong. I apologize.
My motion was to 5018.
So,
Second.
thank you.
Don't move so. It was on the what you read, yeah.
All right. It was 5018. My
Am I
mistake.
good?
You're good.
I'm incredibly wrong. So, thank you, Jake, for catching that. All right, 5118.
5118, third reading on an ordinance.
Before you read that, one question. Is there any comment anymore?
We'll do comment on this one.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
I feel there's a...
5118, third reading on an ordinance fixing maximum salaries and wages for appointed officers and non-bargaining employees of the City of South Bend, Indiana for the calendar year 2019.
Thank you. We will have discussion. I will start with Ms. Preston.
Okay. I'm just bringing back more information at the budget hearing for code enforcement. One of the things that they talked about was adding a new position for someone who would focus on collections to specifically streamline the process for special assessments. At that time, I expressed a concern of how special assessments have impacted residents in my district. Councilwoman White recommended that we take some time and meet outside of this process, talk with code enforcement to kind of better understand what they were thinking and what my concerns were. We had that meeting. Councilwoman asked that we actually bring that back to committee and then bring it back to the full council. We will have a committee meeting tomorrow night, 6 o'clock WBS, where we'll be talking about this more in depth. But just an overview for the record here. One of the things we will be talking about is, one of the concerns for the city came out of the results of the Racial Wealth Divide Report, where we recognize that people of color have a disproportionately low income and property, hold less property and assets than white folks. And we know that, among other things, there's lots of contributing factors to that, but one of the things that we were concerned about was how actual city government processes, policies, and practices influence those or affect those different outcomes. And we've been working on that as a city, I think doing a really, really great job. But as this came to the council with regards to special assessments, we thought, well, let's do more of a deep dive into this particular issue. We already have some data that suggests that the burden of fines and fees falls disproportionately on people of color and poor people. And so what we'll be talking about is how we can work together to create some innovative solutions to how we move forward. I know Tim has some ideas on that. He's been working on some things. But we've talking to community members, there's been some recommendation that over the course of 2019, maybe part of what that position could do is help collect demographic data on citations, race, SES, maybe even age, but qualitative and quantitative data, and that we actually, just for special assessments, do a moratorium on those for the year, just to make sure we collect and analyze that data, report it out, and before we add any more special assessments, that we're actually analyzing the extent to which citations might be falling disproportionately on communities of color. I know that next year we'll be implementing some of these new ideas as well, so I really think that we'll actually see a decrease in those issues. But rather than moving forward without really knowing, that we would suggest that. So these things we'll be talking about tomorrow night, hearing a few stories of things, but that's just wanted to kind of put that out there. I am in support of moving forward with that position, and I hope that we can work together to kind of implement some of these ideas to make sure that we're doing what we want to do as the city of South Bend. The end.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to set the sub.
Motion. Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Vice President Davis.
I am in agreement tonight to support 5118. However, my concern goes back several years ago when we started saying that to give everybody 2% raises. The person making $20,000 gets a 2% raise. That's what, $400. And a person making $100,000 gets a 2% raise. That's $2,000. And so both people, we're rewarding one at $2,000 and the other one we're rewarding at $40,000. I just did a presentation the other week for my class about it's equal, but it's equity, but it's not equal. And I think several years ago we were on this committee and we talked about that, how we got to come up with some better way to set up when we look at being not just equitable but equal to dealing with that issue, because the higher range of employees are rewarded at a higher rate and the lower ones are rewarded at a lower rate just by the nature of the math. And it's nothing against the administration, it's nothing against this council, but we had come up, I remember Dr. Varner leading up something several years ago with that, and we had come, I think it may have been your very first year or near the end of Mayor Steve Lickett, but we had discussed it. I think it crossed over several of those years, and the longer I stay on this council and the more I read about that in management, the more that kind of starts getting to me in the sense that we have to come up with see what's best practices out here and how to really lift up. Even if we can't do it there was another article I read last week was talking about this new generation that's coming in, how you have to have more of a cafeteria type of reward system. So I thought it was really interesting, the article I read, where we still may give the 2%, but for people, especially on the lower economic, we could offer some other kind of benefits or something else to add to that. You know, and I think we can come out the box and be very creative in looking at that. I don't know if it's extra time. A lot of times it's more comp time or something. People just, it's a way of saying thank you, especially for good work. And a lot of people have been around the city, have worked here for 20, 30 years. Their parents worked here. It's a good job to have, good benefits. And I think we have to come up in ways to keep our staff here and keep them not falling apart, because in a few years, the more I've been on the thing, the higher ones are getting boom, boom, boom. And when we give certain salaries and we bump up some of the salaries we did this year, which were needed, it helps not only create morale for those, but it also creates morale and encourages morale throughout the whole corporation, with government. I start off today with the school corporation, I end the day with the council, so I think corporation. But the whole concept is just to promote that equity kind of thing, and I think as we plan for next year's budget, I really want those in administration to think about that cafeteria kind of way to reward people. if we can't just do the 2% to 3% thing, what other ways that we could help, especially with these non-bargaining ones? I mean, the bargaining ones, of course, it's a whole different ballgame. I've been on those Teamsters and other unions. I've been on fire, police, and everything. Even there, we can think about something. But especially when it comes down to these non-bargaining ones, they have nobody to speak for them. So really, this council and our administration has to be the ones to speak for them, because they can't come and do that the same way that the police and the fire and those of Teamsters can do. And they have key roles here in this community, and oftentimes they are the lowest paid. And many of them are. I mean, and so I think we have to just keep that cafeteria mindset open when it comes to setting their salaries. So that's where I am in that.
Thank you, Vice President Davis. Ms. White?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that, because what we are talking about is really salary compression. That the longer you stay, based on the income level in which you have been hired at, the 2% will not keep up with new, higher level salary individuals. The gap tends to get wider and wider. Unless we have a pool of dollars that we can put aside to really address some of the levels of salary that will also impact the general budget, because once you put the monies on those positions, you got to put it in the budget. So I'm in agreement that we need to look at that, because it's critical. And then we need to look at other ways to identify incentives that will reward individuals, but until we deal with that gap, it's going to get wider and wider, because 2% will not keep up with those that are at the higher levels.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Jake Teschka.
So I'll just echo that and channel my inner Dr. Bonner and say that, just for easy math, right? I mean, like a 3-2-1 thing, right? Like if you make under 40, it's 3%. If you're 40 to 80, it's 2%. And if you're over 80, it's 1%. I would say council excluded. But, from that, but
yeah, we're well into
that would be my suggestion moving forward. But what I really wanted to say is, while I appreciate my colleagues and their trust that my wife's relationship and employment with the city would not affect my opinions on this, I am going to recuse myself from this vote.
Thank you.
Okay. I just want to comment. It seems like we're sort of back in the same position we were last year when we were considering this ordinance, and that we had voiced these concerns about the compression, but we're really we're different. So if our concern is high, and it goes back a year, if not 2 years, how can we move this in a direction? If we all feel it strongly as needed, how can we move it in a direction where we get a different proposal? Because I think we had asked that last year. And I'm sorry, sitting here again, it's like, okay, we're back in sort of the same position.
Well,
I do want to ask, I think, Ms. White, you did send out an email probably early spring,
Looking at parameters.
set on the parameters and did ask for suggestions and any input on doing the salaries differently. I don't believe you got any comments on that from this council. So if it is truly what we want to do, then we need to take that ball and run with it and probably sit down. We are not in the 11th hour, we're in the 10th hour. But I'm fine with having those discussions. We want to do it.
Well, that's my point. Is let's be to do it.
It's up to us to do that.
I disagree. I mean, when this is an issue 2 years, 2 years in a row. Yeah, we should comment, hit us over the head, because but let's be purposeful, let's meet. It has been a priority, we have articulated it in years past, we're here again doing the same thing. I'll respond to a proposal that actually, gets us somewhere differently, in the future. If it's a priority, then let's calendar it and let's get it done in the context of our Personnel and Finance Committee. We can help drive that discussion and invite those proposals.
I agree.
I would just like to follow to that. I don't mind leading out a resolution to start that. And the contents of that resolution, I'll work with our attorney and everything else. But I'll tell you what the contents are going to be. And just what Mr. Jake Teska just talked about, I think we need to go back to whoever's inner Dr. Varner is. And let's bring out, because we had already had those discussions, and I work with our clerk to see if we can find those notes and put them in a resolution and start from there. Because we had talked about what he had just said, the higher ranks, 5%, 4% down. So if you're making $100,000 here, there's big thank you and whatever, even though your cost of living is based on that anyway, so we have to consider that, I understand. But it's still different for somebody at $20,000 and everything else, and so it's a different concept. So let's take those notes. I'll put that on my list of things to do, and for those who would like to co-sign or work with me with that, and we of course send it over to your committee, Ms. Chair White. And we roll. So I'm good with that this year.
Thank you.
All right.
Make a motion for passage?
Yeah, second.
Of sub 5118?
That's cool.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. McBride stepped up, but Ms. Fowler, do it very slowly.
Councilmember Gordon?
Aye.
Can you, sir?
Councilmember White?
Oh, aye.
Councilmember Preston?
Aye.
Councilmember Brockman?
Aye.
Councilmember Chester?
He's abstained. Yes.
I abstain. Present.
Vice President?
The grounds that are revenue.
President Scott?
Aye.
Can we just hold off the official calling of the number of the thing until she gets back? I know we've been long and people, yeah, I am. So just hold it for a second.
You're being recorded.
Come on up here real quick.
Thank you, Gavin.
We slowed it up for you.
Aye.
All right. Now I ask for the official record.
Thank you.
Here's pen.
So, 8 ayes, and Councilmember Jessica abstained from voting.
Vice President.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Looks like we're through the budget, folks.
Can I make just a couple of comments?
Yes, Ms.
Because I'm going to put in writing a summary of the budget process, but I first would want to acknowledge every individual from the administration, Jennifer, council members, the city clerk office, and our attorney for all of your hard work to ensuring that we're at this point. And again, as it was stated earlier on, our budget is an ongoing process. And as we continue to discuss, debate, make adjustments, the end result will be that we'll have a stronger budget. So I appreciate each and every one of you. Secondly, if you have any feedback, concerns, challenges, recommendations, please shoot those to me, and that will be part of the final report that I will be submitting to the council, but also sharing with administration. I would like to acknowledge our public citizens. They're not here, but some have been with us from day one. I appreciate their questions. I appreciate their love for the budget process and their level of making sure that at least we had members from the public that were part of the public hearing process. Again, my goal, and should be the goal of the other council members, is to try to expand the level of citizens, one, to educate them, but also to have them to be involved. Even though, we tend to get a lot of questions, but as you begin to look at the public process, that's why they call it public. And again, I know Sue's not here. I don't see Jim Bogner. He was here earlier. I know that we've had Jesse as well as Sharon, but Nikki, and maybe one or two others. So I think we have to recognize their commitment for being here and for staying the task and the course. And I wish them well. And some of them have indicated that they thought that we weren't listening, but we were. If you look at this budget, you will see that we did respond. And again, the goal is to make it better. So I just want the record to show that we recognize the public and those individuals as well.
Thank you, Ms. White. Well said. With that, we'll move to first readings. Ms. Fowler, would you please give first reading to 5418?
5418. First reading on an ordinance to vacate the following described properties: alley 14 inches width running 132 feet from west or south right-of-way of West Madison Street to northeast southeast alley running between Taylor and North William Street.
I move this be sent to the Public Works and Property Vacation Committee and set for second reading and public hearing on 10/22.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. 5518, Ms. Fowler.
5518, first reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, amending Chapter 14 of the South Bend Municipal Code by the inclusion of new Article 14 entitled Special Events on Public Property Regulations.
I don't have this.
I'll entertain a motion to send this to Public Works and Property Vacation for 10/22.
Second. A motion moved.
And second?
But was it published?
Yes, it's first reading. It's
first
published after this. It's published after the first reading. It's just on the first reading. It's published after this.
Can we get a presentation on that?
Yeah.
Can we schedule a presentation on that in Public Works? Is that, I guess that's where it's going. I don't know, is that for
Public Works and Property Vacation, yeah. We'll have full public hearing on it.
Yeah.
For 10/22.
But doesn't the first reading have to be advertised?
Yes, after this. After we say it publicly, then we advertise.
Yeah, we initiate it.
So after today, it will be advertised.
So today, so this is not actually first reading then?
This is the first reading.
Yes.
But it's published after the first reading. This is just to state what the title is and that it was filed.
I got
That's the
you.
first reading.
Okay, I'm happy.
All right.
So moved.
I'm at peace too.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Oh, God. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Thank you. Unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business? I will say one thing, just real quick. I want to thank everybody for tonight. I want to thank everybody for the discussion. The work through, the administration. This probably was the best budget I've seen in 7 years, being on council. So I want to thank everybody. I want to thank everybody for the decorum in the discussion and really looking at other people's point of view and positive feedback, and willing to make adjustments and collaborate and compromise. So I want to thank everybody for that. You're welcome. All right. Any new business?
I've got some.
Jake.
Yeah, so, that's right. This coming Tuesday, the 16th, I will be holding a meeting with some representatives from the South Bend Police Department, including Chief Ruskowski, at Livingstone's Church to address just some neighborhood concerns. So I don't see any known 5th District residents, but if you live in the 5th District,
where is
come out
that
to
church?
Livingstone's Church is on Donmore here.
What time is that going to be?
718 East Donmore, to be specific.
What time?
It's at 6 p.m.
We'll put a notice out to the council members too.
Yeah, so,
All right.
thank you.
All right. That's good. Regina.
Just a quick reminder again, I said it earlier, Community Relations Committee meeting tomorrow night, 6 o'clock at WBS 702 Lincoln Way West to discuss development without displacement, what the city is doing to make sure that we're moving forward the way we plan to as a city. Thank you.
Ms. White.
We'd like to make an announcement this Friday. We'll have the Red Ribbon March Against Violence. It will start at 9:30. The march will be began at Colfax Cultural Center.
Friday?
This coming Friday.
Okay.
Yes, this coming Friday. And then we'll march, am I right? Or is it the 19th? No.
19th.
Okay, the 19th.
Are you sure? I thought it was on a Saturday for some reason.
I thought it was Saturday.
What did I read on Saturday?
What is it?
That's Saturday.
That's what I'm thinking too. I'm thinking that too. We'll get that date.
Okay, I'll get
that
the right
announcement.
date for you, but also this coming Saturday, We have Mamas Against Violence, that will be held at Navarre High School. Middle school now. They've changed it from intermediate to middle school because they have the sixth graders. And the Red Ribbon March is actually Friday, October the 19th.
Okay.
Okay, and we'll send out more information on that. So, I did an interview tonight on ABC 57 about the shootings and some of the gun violence that had happened in the 1st District. One thing that was not reported was 503 on Saturday morning on Forest Avenue, less than a block from my house. 10 rounds of AK-47, 7.62 rounds going down somewhere down the street, which woke everybody up. One thing that I did say was it's about free will. It's about helping people manage their anger and try to redirect that. And I actually offered up all the council members that if someone needs help, reach out to them, reach out to whomever, clergy, relatives, friends. We all have free will. We all make choices, and we want to help those that feel that gun violence is the right choice and consider that the wrong choice and figure out. We also talked a little bit, maybe you want to give up a gun, call me. Take your gun and we'll turn it in. We got to look at different ways of doing that. So not only that, but there's been 3 shootings, all unrelated within Frank's Place, within the 1st District, actually 4 now with the one on Saturday. We got to do something. I know, Ms. White, you and I were talking, we might ask this council to get heavily involved with some issues on that. Okay? And more of that will come.
One quick, Assistant Administration here. Do y'all have a date yet for, cause I gotta go to a village meeting on Wednesday, about the dog park? Anybody have a date on that? Because it was September, then I told them it was heard in October. It was in October. Huh? Okay. Just send me a note. If you can get something to me by even Wednesday, be cool. If not, I'll just tell them as soon as you can get to me so I can let them know so they can be there. Thank you.
Anything else?
I'd like to thank our council attorney.
Okay, John, you can do that. John, you have the floor.
Everybody else got it.
He's earned it today.
Sharon has a question.
John was on TV today, y'all. So check John out on Channel 16.
Anybody else?
I just want to say that I did buy my brick at the Charles Black Center because I was born and raised on that side of town. So if you have not participated in that, even if you didn't live over there, buy one.
Yeah.
Right, that's my board.
Okay. Anything else?
Yep.
Joe Rosen.
The Regional Planning Council meeting to follow up on this Interagency Director of Homeless Services request. 15 organizations, 30 supporting signatures to us to actually look at that. We had spoke about that earlier. And just a correction, it is this Thursday on 11:30. And the location is what needs to be corrected. It was previously announced as a meeting to be held at the Youth Service Bureau, but it is changed to the Center for the Homeless, 3rd floor. And that is an open meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Last comment from me, just for the record, I just want to say he's not here tonight, but he's out running on a race. But I did represent the council at Mr. Robert for Good Child Stones.
You did, thank you.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Perry. Thank you. And you know why I'm saying it like that. Hello. Thank you. I'm telling you. And so, we got that. He's extremely excited. I spoke on behalf of us and glad to have helped out. And it was a nice event. So it turned out really nice.
Thank you.
Except you had Green Bay Packer.
We've signed everything, right?
It's down there.
Yeah. Okay. All right. With that, we'll do privilege of the floor. Anyone wishing to come and speak to the Common Council can do so. You can't talk about anything that was talked about tonight, which seems to be everything. Mr. Brown, go.
My name is Samuel Brown. I live at 222 East Broad Street in the city of South Bend. I want to start off by thanking the president for the bus tour in your district. Because of that, I was able to talk to a gentleman named John Menendez. I think that's how you pronounce his name, for the park department.
John Martinez.
And it was true that I've been trying to get taken down for about 3 years. One of the houses next door to the house where the tree had hit, a lot of that tree was hanging over a garage, over a picture line. And because we took that tour, Mr. Martinez got with me, came over to the house, and felt that tree was in danger, and took it down. And we need more more officials like that. And we need more bus tours to go through our neighborhood and see what the citizens in South Bend don't need, what they want. I think that was a very informative bus trip. And I want to thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Frank's Place, Simple Solution. The owner, I ran a basketball league for 16 years in the city of South Bend in Monica King Center. We had one shoot, and I know what I went through to make it safe for the public. They got to get licensed professional security in that parking lot and inside the building. It's got to be done. You know what I mean? All money is good money. You got to invest some of it back into the customer and make it safe. I know what I went through, and it was a hell of an experience, trust me.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Anyone else? Seeing none. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Good night, everybody.
We got
Thank you
signed
all.
papers, don't we?
Just sign
Someone to
papers.
sign?
We all signed?
We did.
Okay.
It was just one, sorry. It covered it all. Hi, caramba. There you go.
I thought it was a great outcome.